Ladies and gentlemen, happy holidays. What's going on? Appreciate everyone for coming in here. We're going to be doing episode 78 of Phil Spector here. We're going into part 5 of Dr. Michael Baden. He's still hanging out with us. We got an hour 14 to start us off with. Hit the like. Welcome in here. Let's hang out for a little bit.
Let's rock.
Good morning, Murder Church. I should start setting this up for 9:15. That's about the time I usually make it in here now, so might start doing that. Get a little bit closer to time. Welcome in, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully there's some fine folks that make their way through this morning again on a holiday weekend, a 3-day weekend for me, and hopefully it is for you as well. And yeah, we're going to be going into episode 78 here. Let me make sure I got this chat right here so we can discuss as I see some stuff. Hopefully Botrix wakes her ass up. I hope. Nudge it here a little bit. Kathy coming through here. Morning, Kathy. Good morning. Appreciate you coming through here. Carrie came through pretty early. Micah coming through. LS, BGOG, reminding me of the bells. Good call. Dave, in the house. What's up, Dave? Frog coming through. Teresa in the house. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a good weekend. And like I said, yeah, we're going to be diving right back into Phil Spector here. Lexi, the law nerd, thank you so much for that share. Appreciate that. As we get ready to again jump back into this absolute crazy trial. Part 5 of Dr. Michael Baden. He's continuing his testimony. I think we're going to probably get some cross finally from Alan Jackson. Let's see where that ends up, folks. Again, appreciate everyone for coming in. Thanks. The thing I need to do is make the screen a slight bit big.
Seated and come to order. Court 106 is now in session. The Honorable Larry Paul Fiddler, Judge presiding.
Larry Fiddler.
The defendant is present with his counsel. The district attorneys are present. The jurors and the alternates are not present. Yes.
Your Honor, there's an issue. I think Mr. Dixon is going to address it concerning what we would.
First swipe at it, and we'll see what happens. I guess we're starting to get some witnesses here for the Sir rebuttal case and the like, and we just thought we should bring some issues to you that perhaps the court should consider.
Okay.
Leslie Abramson apparently is going to come and testify,
okay.
And I think, and you probably need to hear an offer from them, but it seems to me she's got to reveal privileged communications that reveals, that waives the privilege.
Don't know what she's going to testify to.
I think she's going to come in and testify that this current witness on the stand talked to her and told her all of his findings at the time that she represented the defendant.
Welcome in here.
And they're going to discuss what those findings were. It seems to me that's privileged communications. If not...
Oh, hell yeah. Dave got his shirt. Steve, I got my shirt and wore it proudly to my favorite tavern yesterday. That's awesome. That's a perfect tavern shirt, too. Any kind of publicly buzzed merch. Definitely to go out drinking with. Boom. Perfectly done. Damn, that's awesome. That's why I got it, because this isn't a really old hat. Like, I just got it at Walmart, but it has that retro vibe. I really dig it. Uh-oh, Carrie. I'm packing to stay overnight in Maryland with my family. Getting ready for a nice little holiday get-together. Love it.
Fine.
That's what I advised him of, that we may call her for that purpose to corroborate her what Dr. Baden testified to yesterday. Just that it corroborated happened, that she was advised of the basic opinion regarding self-inflicted wound before Linda Kinney Baden became involved in the case, and talk about the timing and so forth. That's it.
That's it. It's very, 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 very limited here.
And I talked to Miss Abramson last night. She said she would be willing, able, and would like to see the court again if necessary.
We're all friends. What? Okay.
Do you have any salutations you'd like us to do back to her?
Hello. Okay.
And again, we're not 100% certain, but we may do that. We advised him of that.
Okay.
All right,
And
so,
it's only on that limited area, nothing further.
well, it seems to me that that waives the privilege.
I'll have to look into it.
All right, well, I just wanted to give the court a heads up. And then just generally speaking, it seems to me, and again, the court has the power, obviously, to control your courtroom and decide how much of the defense case in chief we're going to replay in the Sir rebuttal. But as I understand it, we're going to have Jennifer Hayes' pumpkin pie and the battle of the paramedics. Daniel Stark's going to return. Pardon? Oh, and Warner Spitz. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Warner Spitz, who just decided he had another epiphany in watching Dr. Bodden that, oh, yeah, he agrees with him, too, and there was apparently just not a complete but a partial transection of Miss Clarkson's spine, which we have no notice about until
Get
this
Spitz
moment.
and Bodden up there together.
I guess everybody's watching court TV and
spitting all
changing their
kinds of shit
opinions
out.
as they do so.
That's not exactly correct. I talked to Mr. Ocampo this morning. I talked to Dr. Smits at 6 o'clock our time, 9 o'clock his time. I asked him whether that would explain the physical findings that he testified to in the lungs, the blood that was there, the blood in the sacs, and he said that would be a perfectly reasonable explanation for why there was the inhalation exhalation that he previously testified about. He says it occurred, and that would explain how
Joel
it would
Phil
occur.
there.
He agreed with basically
Lord. I'm going to pass out on
related to
you.
him that Dr. Bodden had given that opinion. He said that would be a perfectly reasonable explanation, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to have occurred. And I asked him if he was available to come and testify, and he said he would. He would, go back and look at the findings again, and I notified Mr. Ocampo that we intended to call him for that purpose.
So he was on the stand for, what, 2 or 3 days and didn't think of this before?
That's a matter of cross-examination and his credibility. It's not a matter of keeping him off the stand for that. I don't know. What's your basis for saying as to
Cumulative.
Dr. Spitz?
At this
No.
point, it's cumulative. I mean, this would be the fifth, if you count him twice, the fifth forensic pathologist they called, or the fourth? I mean, at some point, are we
Don't
going to put
count.
on 10 or 12 or 20?
I don't believe it's cumulative. It goes to a specific area. His credibility,
Factual
just like
lie.
Dr. Bodden's credibility,
Share
is
as
available
well
for the
this morning
jury
on that.
based upon the timing of the opinions and when this
Appreciate it.
information came forth. Dr. Bodden's issue is another because of the way it was handled, and I'll still have to wait and see where you're at before I determine what the appropriate remedy is. It's either going to be a very pinpoint, very specific instruction dealing with exactly what happened and how the jury can consider it, or the other alternative is to strike that portion of his testimony. Those are the two options that I believe I have.
Well, maybe I should let Mr. Jackson deal with that because it certainly, that has an impact on his cross-examination.
All right?
I believe so. Yeah, I
Simply
believe they
gonna
were
ask the court
already
for some
married.
guidance
All
on-
Kathy.
I don't know
I don't know
what to
when they
do
got
at this
married,
point,
but yeah, I
whether or
believe
not
they're already.
to.
Because earlier
I don't want-
earlier in the trial, they've made mention of it, and I honestly think because they say Linda's sick here. Just to be honest, I think Linda did not want to be in the same courtroom as her husband while she was doing this. Just to be honest.
Cross him on this issue if, in fact, that testimony
Hell yeah!
has the potential of being stricken.
I really appreciate the support.
It has a
any way
potential
y'all
for
can,
being
though.
stricken depending upon
Really
whether it
helps me
meets the
out.
final leg. I believe it's Lamb, which, by the way, I gave you the wrong citation. The opinion was modified, and the final opinion on modification is 136 Calap 4th 575.
That's the side we had.
Okay. So it depends, because before I even get to the consideration of whether that is appropriate, and there are certain pitfalls associated with that, but I'll deal with that. But I have to know what you've been prevented from doing, what efforts, have been undertaken. You have to convince me that you've been disadvantaged other than the way it came out. Because if you look at Lamb, it's basically I have to look at the least, if there are other less restrictive remedies, and it's a question of whether the pinpoint instruction, which I'm not so sure would be, if you will, a less restrictive sort of application, because it might be the way I'm envisioning it, I'm thinking about it, I'm playing it out in my mind. It all depends.
I guess that leaves me in the position to, I need to address it. I mean,
Well, one of the ways of addressing it, it seems to me, is Dr. Bodden will not be excused, and if you need to go back to that, depending upon where we end up after everything, you're done doing what you need to do and inquiring as you need to inquire and making a final offer of proof, then I'll decide how I want to proceed with it.
Well, what I would suggest, or maybe the way that I will handle this is to inquire about the specifics concerning when, the whens and wheres, but not necessarily explore the medical finding, other than just to say that, okay, on direct examination, you said this. And I'd like to explore the specific determinations of when this epiphany occurred, et cetera.
That's fine.
And what I don't want to have happen is for the redirect examination to be opened up. Okay, Mr. Jackson asked you about this finding. Let's talk about it at length and get back into the specific medical findings. If that's not what I'm crossing him on, the medical findings themselves, but rather the timing of when this came to the fore, I would ask that the redirect examination be limited. Otherwise, I'm being prejudiced just that much more.
Given the nature of the violation, I think I can handle that.
Thank you, Judge. And I
Okay, what
think I'm
else?
ready.
Just a couple weeks. Mr. Bruno has another appearance tomorrow, but he'll be here. We did our homework last night and this morning, and I think Mr. Bruno and he will handle the bulk of this argument on the discovery violation, so we'd like to be able to present our position on it, but we have to wait till he gets here to do that. Secondly,
You can present your position. The bottom line is the law is the law.
I understand, but we did do our homework last night. The court instructed us to go do some homework, and we did, and we've got some law that we'd like to provide to the court, and so the court can consider it and rule as it feels fit. I want to address three witnesses that...
Bonnie, welcome in, welcome in. Good morning. Hope you're having a good
Very
weekend.
briefly, and it only requires a very quick brush with them, and that is Pumpkin Pie, Jennifer Laughlin, Daniel Stark. And actually, I also informed him this morning that there's another potential witness. I'm sorry I don't know the witness's last name, but I did tell Mr. Dixon. Actually, I called last night late about 9:30 and left a message on his voicemail. It's the first I found out about it. Obviously, they are going to be called in surrogate, and as far as Pumpkin Pie goes, Mr. Dixon chose to introduce a letter, a Christmas letter that Millie Hudson had received from Pumpkin Pie, and he spent, because I read Millie Hudson's testimony last night, he spent quite some time on direct and redirect, flushing out the one sentence that he liked very much about Miss Laughlin's opinion about Mr. Spector. So we're going to get into that and explain that on surrogate, and I do believe that is proper. And secondly, we're also going to address the Michael Bay issue. When Mr. Bay was here, he clearly said he never saw Miss Clarkson at the party and never bumped into her, never said anything to her. Miss Laughlin is going to address that as she had previously, and that also dovetails into this other witness who, I'm sorry, I don't know the last name, but I did tell Mr. Dixon first thing this morning. I only learned about it this morning. The first name is Tanara, and I think it's spelled T-A-N-A-R-A. I don't even know the spelling of it. And I told him also that she was basically at the Jeff Franklin party, saw Lana Clarkson. Lana Clarkson came running over to her, quite stressed out, saying, "Where's Pie? Where's Pie? I've got to speak to Pie," and pointed her in the direction and off she went to see Pie. And that corroborates what Ms. Laughlin said, and it also I think it's up to the jury to decide how they balance that in terms of Mr. Bay. And finally, Daniel Stark, obviously, they put in the issue by calling Bruce Liverpool, and that's the only reason they called Bruce Liverpool, was to address the issue of whether or not Miss Clarkson was, in fact, under the influence. And I don't have to remind the court.
And he's already testified specifically that she was. So what is he going to add that's new?
We have a new issue, Your Honor, from the rebuttal. The rebuttal raised the issue that there was this speaker in the back of the ambulance, and that Mr. Stark never said anything to Mr. Liverpool when it came blaring over the speaker about the fact that she wasn't under the influence and how he should have done that as a paramedic and didn't do it. That's right in the transcript. I just read that last night, too. So Mr. Stark's going to come in and explain that.
Well, that's specific. You just got specific. You started out with the generality that Mr. Stark was going to testify without indicating what he was going to testify to.
I was going to get to that.
That's so crazy.
That addresses also. And I told this to Mr. Dixon.
I mean, I guess, is that
last night when I heard about it.
Did you
I
look
was
this
called
up
by
one
our
time?
investigator
Is
about
her
8:30,
name?
9:45. As soon as
It
I
can't be
heard about it,
Pumpkin Pie.
And I also indicated to him I expect that she will produce reports later today. And
Good
I promised
morning.
him that I will provide this to him first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. So is the prosecution seeking a ruling on these witnesses? Is that what you want?
At this time, probably not. We need to explore a little bit more. I mean, there's going to be, if Leslie Abramson is going to come in, I'm going to make a very, very specific discovery request concerning all communications between Ms. Abramson and this witness, all communications between Ms. Abramson and other counsel concerning this witness, all communications between Ms. Abramson and whoever may have impacted these conversations about Dr. Bodden. And I expect that that will be received with a privileged objection, and we're going to have to litigate that. I think if Leslie Abramson gets on the stand and waives the privilege, Mr. Spector doesn't get to choose and pick under 356 what part of the privilege he likes to have waived that helps his case, and the part of the privilege that versus the part of the privilege that he doesn't really want to have waived that may impact our case. That's going to be my position. So I think it's going to open up quite the Pandora's box if she's allowed to testify to this this issue that's come to the fore as of Sunday, apparently.
All right. Anything else?
I have nothing further. I just responded to Mr. Dixon. I have no.
That's all.
The court was, I assume the parties have a motion to quash a subpoena that was issued to Donna Clarkson. I'll put it on calendar Friday. I'm not taking any jury time to deal with
I
it.
haven't seen the motion yet.
Well, there's a motion, you issued a
that
subpoena,
was
and there's a
about
motion
this
filed
This poor
today's date to quash your
Like,
subpoena.
this would be the
Okay,
one
yeah,
that you
Mr.
have
Bruton
to
is
get out of.
handling that, but,
You just get, you're like,
okay,
no.
we'd like to-
He's just on appearance. He'll be
That's fine.
I don't know
All
what
right,
you
let's
got
get
to do.
started. Let's bring out the jurors and the alternates.
Let's go. Jerry coming out. Let's go.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Bodden, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
We left off
Here we
yesterday
go. Jackson and Bod.
with a discussion. We had moved from a discussion about the jacket belonging to Lana Clarkson,
morning.
and there was some indication that you were having a hard time with the particular exhibit that I was using, seeing the buttons on that particular jacket. I just want to kind of cross that bridge and move on from it real quick. I've marked as People's 188. That's next in order. Another photograph. I'm sorry? Well, you know what? If you highlight the left portion of the, I think that may be okay. All right, can you see the jacket as it's displayed on this mannequin, Dr. Bodden, from where you're at?
May I ask you where that was taken?
I believe your folks took that at the evidence exam.
The evidence exam? Okay.
Okay.
I see that.
Does that look like Lana Clarkson's jacket, the black jacket that was placed on the mannequin?
Yeah, I was there. That was taken at the sheriff's office by the defense personnel.
Okay, and do you see what I'm highlighting right here on the photograph?
Yes.
That's been enlarged just a little bit, but what are those things?
Those are the buttons on the left side of the sleeve, yes.
Thank you. That's all, Sudi. Dr. Bodden, yesterday when we did leave off, I was talking to you about professional obligations of an expert, and I think you agreed with me yesterday afternoon that concerning an expert witness, objectivity and independence is obviously very important to maintain if you're an expert witness, to maintain the trust of the particular testimony that one is giving, correct?
Yes.
And you had indicated on direct examination that you do have a relationship with one of the defense attorneys in this case. As a matter of fact, some might even call her the lead defense attorney in this case, Ms. Linda Kinney Bodden, correct?
She is my wife, yes.
All right. Can you tell us, or tell the jurors in your words, how you define the phrase conflict of interest?
Objection.
Your Honor,
No.
I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
want to hear the objection.
No, objection. No foundation, speculative, and vague.
Overruled.
Your Honor, if I may, as a matter of housekeeping,
Overruled.
the court was pretty clear when we began
that was pretty
this
funny.
trial that we wouldn't have multiple objections kind of flying at us from
Correct.
either
I
side of the
said,
table.
pick the attorney that you want to make the objections for any given witness. I have no problem. It's anyone you want, but not multiple. The same goes to the prosecution.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Rosen's been elected.
All right. Can you go ahead and answer that question for us, Dr. Bodden?
I'll answer your question, yes.
Sure.
I consider conflict of interest a legal term and not a medical term, so I can't really define it, as you say, but if you're asking me about my wife being involved in the case.
I'm simply asking you, Dr. Bodden, about your definition of the general phrase, a conflict of interest,
I don't
as you know it.
have a definition for that.
Would you agree that it's any situation in which a professional's opinions
Morning, Simmy.
are or
Hope you're having
can
a
be
good weekend.
influenced by personal interests? Would that be a phrase
because
that...
I think there's a conflict of interest between
Doctor,
lawyers
let me
and
finish
clients.
you have to let me finish my question, sir.
He hadn't finished his
Okay,
question.
I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Us talking over each other is
Yeah.
not going to do any good. Just let me finish my question.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Please, and I'll show you the same respect, sir. Would you agree that that is, in fact, a generalized definition of a conflict of interest? I'll repeat it, a situation in which a professional's opinions are influenced by his or her personal interests or her personal relationships.
I can't accept that because I'm often in situations where there are different interests between lawyers and clients. Those are built-in conflicts of interest. The lawyer's writing a book and making $4 million, and the client is, that may conflict with the client. So I can't answer that, but I do know that there are a lot of times that I'm involved with cases where attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys, benefit from that relationship beyond the client's benefit. You'll be a judge sometime. Is that a conflict of interest?
You just your opinion is, in your mind, the question of conflict of interest arises, if I may, thank you, Lisa.
On the basis of,
Bodden over there breathing deeply into the mic. Jesus.
I'm sorry,
finish.
excuse me, sorry.
If I may one day become a judge, that's your definition of a
My definition would be, not to get personal, but if you're promoted or become a judge or write a book about this trial, that's a conflict of interest.
Get personal.
So I don't know
Let's
where to
go.
move the line. It's all relative.
Would you agree that any professional's opinion
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
where there is a conflict between telling the truth, for instance, and personal interests, either personal interests from relationships or personal interests from financial interests, and those two things are at odds,
up,
that would
GG?
be a
Welcome in here.
definition of conflict of interest. Would you agree with that?
No, because I think a proper professional will give his or her opinion no matter which side it helps or hurts.
You state,
If I may finish, if it helps the defense or it hurts the defense, if it helps the prosecution or hurts the prosecution, is based on the professional's opinion, not even though it will help or hurt somebody. Every opinion we make in a criminal case or in a civil case hurts somebody and helps somebody. And that doesn't necessarily mean, in my mind, it's a conflict of interest, as long as the professional, as long as the forensic scientist says the truth.
But Doctor,
as we see it.
the somebody that's hurt or helped is usually not your wife sitting 9 feet away at counsel table. Would you agree with that?
I am going to...
We're getting in here to Linda Kinney Bodden again, who is not in the courtroom because she is sick. I'd imagine it's because she didn't want to be. Because earlier we already had a little bit of an issue. They were kind of talking about it when he came in during the early part of the trial for a different portion that wasn't exactly, what was it, the tooth? The fingernail? The tooth, I think, is what they were debating on. And it was kind of like a side trial on this for the majority of this trial so far. But yeah, Linda Kinney Bodden, his wife, also known on these YouTube streets currently in the true crime community and from Law and Crime, but currently doing her own thing on YouTube. Get her name brought up here again outside of the courtroom currently because she is sick.
Sustain the objection. That's appropriate argument.
As I said on Bob's channel, I'm going to have I talked to Linda Kinney Bodden, and I was like, man, I'd love to have you on a Feral Friday to watch the Phil Spector movie, and I think that she's down to do it. We're going to try to get that going after the Karen Reed trial, so I think that'll be super cool.
The person that is normally helped or hindered is normally not your wife. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Objection, argument.
I think I'm going to sustain the objection. If you want to ask him a very pointed, direct question, I'll allow you to do that.
You said that a conflict of interest is a legal term, not a medical term, correct?
Yes.
There are, in fact, You said you're a member of the American Medical Association, correct?
Yes.
There are AMA codes of ethics, are there not?
I'm sure there are. I'm not familiar with them.
You've been practicing medicine for some 47 years,
That's correct.
and you're not familiar with the American Medical Association Basic Code of Ethics, medical ethics?
Not specific. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, objection. The form of the questions are.
Not specifically, no.
So you would be unfamiliar with Code E-8.19 entitled Self-Treatment or Treatment of Immediate Family Members. You're not familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Yo! What's happening? What's going down? I'll tell you what's going down real quick. Kathy coming through here with a 420 through the Venmo machine. Put Pumpkin on the wheel, please. She has not won in quite a while, and you've got it. Of course, the folks that do not know, we have a physical wheel that we spin here. Once we get 12 names on that thing, we spin to give away some goodies here at Publicly Buzz. I got a lot of cool stuff that I give away, whether that's stickers, whether that's magnets to put on the old fridge, whether that's, I did have some keychains up in here, a lot of cool things that I send out, and boom, we were working on that on Friday night. Kathy, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let me get you right here. Where are we at right now on the wheel? On the way to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're halfway to a wheel right now. And again, for any new folks that might be lurking about, here is our physical wheel that we spin, that son of a bitch, you know. And there's no limit of how many times you can get on a wheel either. So, and then let me just pop that up here so people can see. I think I've still got my donation bar. Boom, donation bar right up top there. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Publicly Buzzed. Also supers, and if you become a member, the only thing about a membership that you would maybe be interested in, on Tuesday nights I do a members-only stream right after Murder Church, and we're currently reading a book. It's a book club also, and we're reading The Stranger Beside Me, a Ted Bundy book, and we're deep into that. But yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate the hell out of that.
Are you familiar with the quote from the American Medical Association Code of Medical Ethics that basically states, physicians should generally not treat members of their immediate family because, quote, professional objectivity may be
Justice Served TV with Michael Bryant. Thank you, Simi. That was Linda Kenny Bodden's YouTube channel.
Compromised, and the physician's personal feelings may be unduly influenced by his or her professional medical judgment. Are you aware of that quote from the American Medical Association?
Objection, relevancy, and materiality. This is dealing with treating a family member medically.
I recognize that. There is some language, however, that might be germane to this, and that's up ultimately when all the testimony is finished for the jury to make a determination, but I believe there's enough to ask him the question.
Yeah.
You may.
Are you aware of that phraseology?
Then I'm guilty, mea culpa.
No,
Wait
Dr.
a
Bodden,
second.
I asked you a question, yes or no. Are you aware?
May I finish my answer?
Just a second. Thank you.
We're getting spicy.
If you are objecting that the answer is not responsive, that's one thing, but I don't want to have talking overs.
That's fine. I'll object. It's non-responsive.
All right, sustained.
I'm getting wild already. Tell you right now.
Ask the question again and see if you can answer it as directly as possible. You'll have a chance to explain.
Are you aware of that phraseology?
I'm aware of that concept, but that's a much violated concept. All doctors treat their family.
Fuck yeah, Simi.
So if
You
it's,
got gifted out a membership on Friday by Lisa, Miss Shorty, so. Fuck
I
yeah.
treat my family.
So if there's a violation of the American Medical Association Code of Ethics by others, you think it's okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I treat my children when they're sick, I treat my wife when they're sick as best as I can. And I don't feel any violation, and I feel more confident that I know a great deal about treating my family that other doctors don't know. And as far as I know, most doctors will treat their family.
And of course, Dr. Bodden, according to the American Medical Association, which is the governing body of the ethics guidelines of physicians in the United States.
No, it's not. No, it's
Excuse
not.
me. I'm not finished with my question.
Excuse me, you're making misstatements.
Well, doctor, if you want to argue.
Sorry. I apologize.
We're getting spicy here in Baden. I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, I'm excited to have Linda Baden on here, but from just the testimony early on by Dr. Michael Baden, I feel like that he would basically say about anything that the defense wanted him to say, as it pertains especially to Phil Spector and anything regarding Linda Kenny Baden. He's going to be protective of them for sure. That's just my personal opinion about it.
Okay, go ahead and finish your question.
Thank you. You're aware that the American Medical Association, the governing body of, at least for this code of ethics, for United States physicians, board-certified physicians and otherwise, frowns on any activity by a physician that could compromise the physician's compromise the physician's professional objectivity by invading the personal feelings and influencing his or her professional medical judgment. They frown on any activity that's like that. You agree with that, correct?
No, I don't. First of all, I don't agree that the AMA is the governing body. It's a union of physicians, and most physicians in the United States don't belong to it, as far as I have last seen.
But you do.
Hold on a second. Are you finished with your answer?
No, not sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Secondly, it doesn't frown on doctors treating their family medically for conditions that they think they can handle. I wouldn't operate on my wife, but I certainly would diagnose a strep throat on my wife and treat it accordingly. There are different levels of treatment. So if you're saying that's 100%, I would disagree with that. But I think that if it's a very serious condition, then another doctor should be involved.
Why?
Wait. Before you ask your next question, Mr. Rosen, you had an objection. Do you want to go forward with it? What would you like to do with it? You didn't tell me what the grounds were because they were still talking. Go ahead.
I think the horse is still in the barn, Your Honor.
So you're going to withdraw your objection? All right.
Yes.
And the question now is why?
Correct.
I'm sorry, what's
Why?
the question? Why what?
Why would it be inappropriate for a physician to treat his or her immediate family member if it's a very serious condition, as opposed to just diagnosing a cold or a flu?
Because there are levels of competence of doctors. I'm competent to treat minor conditions of my family, but I'm not competent to treat major conditions, period.
So you think that if there was a competent brain surgeon, that competent brain surgery, if the situation arose, would be it'd be perfectly valid for that competent brain surgeon to perform brain surgery on that competent brain surgeon's child?
If, depending on the circumstances, yes. There's circumstances where that would be appropriate.
And of course, you are a member of the AMA.
Yes.
And you know that the AMA would absolutely disagree with that position, correct?
I don't know that at all.
All right.
It depends who else is available. A father who's a competent neurosurgeon is better able to operate on their child if there are only internists around. It depends who's available. It would be better to have another competent neurosurgeon operate if that neurosurgeon were present.
Why?
Because there's less emotion involved. And period, less emotion involved.
How does that play into a determination as to whether or not a competent brain surgeon should perform a medical procedure on his child?
Exactly. That's why I disagree with the AMA, that AMA reading that you gave to me. Under certain circumstances, especially if a husband and wife are getting divorced,
it's super
it's not a good idea for the husband to operate on the wife.
This trial gets wild often.
So you do agree.
It's very circumstance. It's very dependent on the circumstances.
So you do agree that emotions or personal feelings or personal interests can play a part in a conflict of interest, either medically or otherwise?
I don't know about the conflict of interest part. I told you, I don't know what that means. It can play a part in relationship. Yes, it can play a part of emotion.
And your testimony is that you don't know what the phrase conflict of interest means, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Doctor, do you have, well, in this particular case, let's come back to this case.
Yes.
You have a personal interest and a financial interest in the outcome of this case, do you not?
I'm going to object. It's a compound question.
In this case, I think it needs to be broken down.
Thank you.
So break it down into two parts. Do you believe that you have a personal, did you ask the question conflict?
Personal interest in the
Personal
outcome of
interest.
this case.
I have a personal interest relative to Mrs. Spector. I agreed some years ago to evaluate the forensic pathology on behalf of Mrs. Spector, and my interest in this case is entirely related to Mr. Spector, not who the lawyers are.
Your interest in this case is in no way influenced, one way or the other, by the fact that your wife
It's
is one of the lead
impossible.
counsel for Mr. Spector.
Impossible.
No, it is not. I made all my findings, all my opinions, years before my wife got involved in this case.
Yeah, he's still alive.
When
He
did
shows
you
up
write
on
your
our channel
report,
sometimes.
memorializing your opinions and your findings?
I memorialized it on Valentine's Day of 2007 when I was asked by Mr. Blazier to make a report.
February 14th, 2007, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any notes or documentation of your findings and conclusions that predate that memorialization?
Yeah, I have all my stickies and all my highlightings of the material that I thought was pertinent.
Do you have handwritten notes of your findings that memorialize your findings and or conclusions that predate February 14th, 2007?
No.
So the first time you wrote anything down that would be turned over to the prosecution in the discovery process, the first time that you've memorialized your conclusions and findings in written form that can be documented, was well after your wife was already on this case, correct?
That's correct. My previous memorialization was orally to the various lawyers who were involved on behalf of Mrs. Spector.
And of course, you have a financial interest in this case as well, do you not?
Can we come to the bench on this? Sure.
I mean,
May I
yeah.
resume, Your Honor?
You're getting
Okay.
paid, son. Let's just
Dr.
admit
Bodden, I was
that.
about to ask about or I think I did ask about your financial interest in this particular case. You have received certain remuneration in this case, correct?
Yes, I have.
I think you indicated yesterday that it was somewhere, under questioning by Mr. Plord, it was somewhere in the area of about $80,000, correct?
I don't think it was yesterday, but I had indicated about $80,000, and then I advised Mr. Plord in talking to my secretary that there was an
Factual,
additional
welcome in. Thanks for that share.
$10,000 that was received in May relative to the 3 days I was here for the preliminary hearing, not preliminary, a hearing in May that Judge Fiddler had ordered.
And
That was an additional $10,000.
And isn't it true, Dr. Bodden, that there is actually an outstanding balance of some additional monies that you have charged, you have yet to be paid on, correct?
No, there's no outstanding balance, but presumably I will submit a bill depending how long I'm here.
And what do you expect to submit that bill for, sir?
I don't know.
2,000 a day, 3,000 a day, 5,000 a day for your testimony yesterday and today?
It isn't for my testimony, and since I'm here also, well, I'm here primarily from Mr. Spector, but I would be here anyway because of my wife's illness.
All I'm asking is, are you going to charge again?
I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 more perhaps.
Okay, so possibly a total of around $110,000 complete for your employment, we'll put it that way, for your employment as a consultant in this particular case, correct?
That's possible, yes.
And for that $110,000,
What'd he say? What's he talking about?
I believe you testified yesterday.
Everybody's got a
I may have
price.
shown this to you yesterday.
Everybody's gonna
You
pay.
prepared a report, correct?
No, that's
$1 million
not
man.
That
Dr.
report was
Bodden.
part of a lot of things that I did, not just the report. I'm not charging $110,000 for a 3-page report.
And this is, in fact, you just answered my next question. This is a 3-page report, correct?
That's correct.
And actually with the headers and the signature line taken out, probably closer to about 2.5 pages, correct?
Whatever you say.
All right. And the fact of the matter is,
Getting
according to your
mad.
testimony, there is no more memorialization of your findings and conclusions than this 2.5 pages of double-spaced, typewritten documentation.
I know.
That's not true.
You don't have any other notes or memorialization.
If I may answer the question,
It's hilarious.
I memorialized my findings and my opinions with ongoing, frequent conversations with the various attorneys that had been representing Mr. Spector, so that the attorneys at all times knew my opinions, and as I got more information, because I kept getting more information, and I was not asked to make a report, a written report, until February 14 of this year, and that was largely because most of the information had been received at that time.
Well, Dr. Bodden, you just said that you've been giving oral reports about your findings and conclusions dating back to when?
Dating back to February 4th, 2003. Dating back to when I finished attending the autopsy.
And how many of these oral reports have you given to the defense attorneys over the years?
Dozens and dozens.
Did you write any of these down?
No, I was not asked to write anything down. I assume because the information was incomplete.
Did you give these oral reports to Mr. Shapiro?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to Ms. Abramson?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to Mr. Plord?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to Mr. Brunon?
Yes.
Did you give oral reports to your wife?
At some point, yes.
When? Speaking about Linda Kinney Bodden.
Linda Kinney Bodden, when she was approached to, about a year and a half ago, when she was approached to become an attorney for Mr. Spector, she asked me what my opinion was of the charges against Mr. Spector, because she didn't want to get involved with something where defending a guilty person. I told
Objection.
her...
Objection, Your Honor.
Sorry.
I move to strike that. Her comments are non-responsive to my question when he gave reports.
The objection is sustained. The question about her feelings about an innocent person are stricken. The jury will not consider them in any way.
I apologize.
All right, you may proceed.
And I told her, I advised her at that time, a year and a half ago, that on the basis of all the evidence that I had reviewed...
Objection. This is non-responsive. I asked when he gave an oral report to his wife.
I thought...
The objection is sustained. The answer is stricken. We're just looking for a time frame.
About a year and a half, about April of 2006, somewhere around that time.
Yet the first time...
Maybe February, maybe March of 2006.
Yet notwithstanding your claim that you've been giving these oral reports about your findings for
So happy everybody's
years,
here. Thanks for coming, guys.
the only written documentation we have of your findings is dated February 14th, 2007. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Your Honor, at this point, I think I'd like to approach very briefly.
All right, you may approach.
At this point, I'd like to put the gloves on.
With regard to...
Hold up! Hold up! Hold up! Son of a bitch!
your appearance here in the courtroom, there was never an option
Tammy, morning.
when you spoke with your wife about this
Get
case.
in
And by the
here.
way, you've spoken to your wife about this case, obviously, innumerable times, correct?
Objection, laying no foundation.
It's a little bit broad. If you want to tighten it up as far as timeframes, the objection will be sustained.
Sure. Over the years, since you've been on this case and your wife has been representing Mr. Spector as his counsel, and I think you said a year and a half is actually back in 2005 when Miss Linda Kinney Bodden was hired onto this case, correct?
Not that I'm...
That is supposed to witness.
I don't remember the
He
date.
said, I believe, March or April of 06.
I think, as I recall, March or April, about March maybe of 06.
Okay, let's take that time frame. During that time frame, since your wife has been representing Mr. Spector, how many conversations have you had with your wife concerning your potential testimony, your findings and conclusions?
Well, concerning my opinions in the matter, many times.
How many times? Give me an idea.
I don't have an idea.
I used the word innumerable, and that was objected to as vague. Would that be? Would you agree with that?
I didn't count them. If innumerable means uncounted.
Too many to count.
Not too many to count. We both have a different life also. But if you want dozens of times, I'd go with dozens.
And you've actually been on particular field trips in this particular case with your wife too, correct?
Yes, if the field trip to the sheriff's office, yes.
Mr. Plord asked you yesterday, he named off a list of people that went to the sheriff's crime lab to look at the evidence, correct?
Yes.
And he talked about several experts that were there and several attorneys that were there, correct?
Yes, that was about May of last year.
And in fact, let's have marked the people's next in order.
189.
189. One person he didn't mention was your wife, correct?
I don't recall that. Certainly my wife was there.
As a matter of fact, and if you take a look at people's 189, who's the person on the left? Hiding behind the map.
You are very accurate. The person on the right is my wife, and I guess that the chipmunk looks like me.
All right. Well, so better you than me. Okay, thank you, Sudi. The fact of the matter is, you and your wife were together at the evidence viewing, correct?
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
And you've been together on several occasions talking about this case and discussing this case, correct?
Yes.
And she was discussing this case in her capacity as Mr. Spector's representative.
Yes.
And all the while, you are supposed to, as an expert in the case, maintain neutrality, independence, and objectivity in your capacity as the expert, not the attorney, correct?
Argument overruled. You may answer.
Yeah, I am supposed to keep my independence as a forensic pathologist, yes.
And in fact, you have when I asked you about your personal interest in this case, you have an additional personal interest other than simply your representation as an expert of Mr. Spector, correct?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, you have an additional personal interest in watching your wife succeed in her endeavor in this case, correct?
Overruled. It goes to positive bias.
No, I think that the most important thing, the only interest I have is that Mr. Spector get a fair hearing based on the information available to me. I am not concerned about what happens to Mr. Rosen, Mr. Plord, or my wife, or Brad, as far as their future goes. That's not my concern. And I tell you, that's not my concern.
Oh, that happens regularly. Loads of laughing. They basically have little stand-up comedy shows here sometimes, depending on who's talking. It's hilarious.
Very nice people, but they're not my concern.
Lots of laughter in this court. This is the wildest trial I've ever actually watched.
We'll hopefully stay married and well married, regardless of the outcome.
And you said, Dr. Bodden, that your interest is in ensuring that Mr. Spector gets a fair trial, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Aren't you also supposed to be interested in making sure that the prosecution gets a fair trial also?
If he gets a fair trial, you've gotten a fair trial. Lana Clarkson has gotten a fair trial.
And isn't it a fact?
Am I finished?
Yes.
As long as the courtroom is fair, then everybody benefits from it.
And isn't it a fact, Dr. Bodden, that in your capacity as Linda Kinney Bodden's husband, you have competing
I do think he did it low light recovery. Also, thanks for coming in here.
interests?
Whether it was a mistake in the moment, a drunken mistake, either way, I think he pulled the gun out and put it in her face, just from all the testimony that we've heard from numerous women over and over and over, that he did this exact same thing to, except they didn't die. But yeah, the defense is arguing that she killed herself in the moment, essentially. Gun comes out, she was already depressed, she finds this is the time to do it. I don't know, whether it was a slip up and there was some kind of struggle or fight, the trigger got pulled. Yeah, I do put the blame fully on Phil Spector, personally, just from what I've seen.
On the one hand, being simply to...
Also, got a poll up right now. Do you think Phil Spector pulled the trigger? Yes, at 71%. No, at 6%. There's still one person that does not, and then 24% for not sure, out of 17 votes. Pretty interesting.
Tell the truth as an independent, objective, unbiased expert, and the other interest to make sure that your wife has some level of success in this trial. Isn't that true?
No, and I'll tell you, Mr. Jackson.
Well, Bob said that too, Simi. I think that's exactly what happened. I think that she didn't want to be in there while Dr. Biden, her husband, was up here testifying. You know, she would probably never admit that. I mean, why would you at this point, especially? But yeah, I think Linda was sick because she didn't actually want to be in the room with her husband testifying.
Here, you come to New York or asked me when I was here, I would have told you over the years the exact same thing I was telling the defense attorneys. My opinion isn't cut to measure who's asking me the question. It's the opinion I have, and I would tell you the same opinion, Mr. Dixon, Mr. McKenzie, John Perkins, the same opinion, whether they agree with it or not. And if I may, because if I had an opinion that was contrary to the theory of the lawyers for Mr. Spector, I would assume they would take that into account in how to proceed. Maybe they'd want a plea bargain or something. So if I give them the wrong opinion, I'm hurting them.
Dr. Bodden, isn't it a fact that, I mean, that all sounds fine and good when your wife's not the lawyer, Dr. Bodden. What I'm asking is, isn't it true that...
It's sustained in the form of the question.
Isn't it true, Dr. Bodden, that if you testified to something, if you found something out or you considered something...
Oh, shit. Kathy coming through and helping me out twice this morning. Kathy, man, you're the fucking best. You rule so hard, like, seriously. I ain't even joking.
Just chilling.
Just chilling in here, Kathy. Thank you so much. Sending me $15 through the Cash App for the holidays. Thank you so freaking much. I appreciate that. Getting you on this wheel again. You and Pumpkin on the wheel. We're up to 7 now. And again, man, thank you so much. Gypsy thanks you so much, honest to God. Like, anything that comes through here, every single bit of that loot that comes through Publicly Buzzed goes to Gypsy. And that's not a lie. That's 100% truth. So thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate the fuck out of that.
That you, say, for instance, hadn't previously considered before, yes. And it waived against Mr. Spector.
I saw your message in there for the 15th, so that one might go to something else. Wink, wink.
No,
thank you so much.
Sustained, it calls for speculation.
This trial's insane, by the way, folks. Larry Fiddler's the best judge I've ever seen. Runs my favorite courtroom ever.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Wild.
Well done, Judge. The fact of the matter is if you said something in this trial, Dr. Bodden, you have a competing interest, that being with your testimony here in the court and that being with your wife. And that competing interest means that if you said something that, for instance, hurt Mr. Spector's case, you would have to answer to a greater authority, that greater authority being your wife, correct?
Yeah.
Not only one other woman, like 4 other women testified that he had done this when they got up and tried to leave after partying with him or hanging out with him or having drinks with him and he wanted to have sex with them. Multiple women, like 4 women, testified to the same exact scenario and situation, and one of them was raped after in a hotel room. So
I haven't allowed. You may answer the question.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, Mr. Jackson, the way it works with me,
She'll
or
grift
other
out
experts, if I found things, you're absolutely right, that was contrary to the case that the lawyers for Mr. Spector are presenting, they wouldn't call me. They wouldn't call me. They wouldn't ask me questions. Most of the time, when I'm consulted by attorneys, they don't call me to testify because my theory doesn't mesh with their theory. So it isn't hiding it, it's just that they wouldn't call me to their part of the case.
Except, Dr. Bodden, in this case, your theory was created so that you could be called, so that it would help your wife. Isn't that true?
Objection created, vague and argumentative.
Overruled. I'll allow it as cross-examination.
No, it's not true.
All right. You've consulted with some of the other experts.
And again, whether he meant to pull that trigger in the moment, because we know he was highly intoxicated, and we've heard recordings of Phil Spector when he is highly intoxicated. He sounds like a different human being. He sounds like a fucking demon from hell. Yeah, I am fully convinced from what I've seen thus far that even if it was a mistake in the moment, he is the reason Lana Clarkson died that night. In my personal
in this case, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Spoke to spoke better than consulted. Yes, I spoke to other experts.
Dr. DeMaio?
Yes.
Dr. Spitz?
Yes.
Dr. Lietzma?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, with regard to Dr. Lietzma, you're the one that put the call out to Dr. Lietzma to see if he would testify in this case for the defense, correct?
No, that wasn't true.
So if Dr. Lietzma testified that the first phone call he got was from Dr. Michael Bodden, was that another Dr. Michael Bodden, or was that you?
I don't believe I called him. I knew that he was going to be called. Somebody asked me if he was a good person, and I said he was a good person to call. But I don't believe I called him.
As a matter of fact, the person that asked you if he was a good expert was probably your wife, wasn't it?
No, my wife, I worked with Dr. Leitz
Dude, Alan's
previously in
just
matters.
little
Objection,
jabs.
not
Bam,
responsive.
bam.
He's trying to place it.
I simply asked who.
No.
Wait a second. He's trying to place it. The objection is overruled. You may answer the question.
Yeah, I believe it was Chris Plord who was involved with suggesting Dr. Leistman, because he's been an expert for Chris Plord a number of times in the past.
And your wife didn't have anything to do with that decision.
I don't think so.
Linda Kinney Bodden was never going to be the person to take you on direct examination. Isn't that true?
That's true.
Why is that?
Well, because of the very things you bring up, because I was a witness in the case, when she was asked to come aboard by, I think, another attorney that you didn't mention.
Live shot of Phil Spector, the ghoul down here. If anybody is unfamiliar with what he looks like, sitting there at the table, he looks like the fucking crypt keeper.
Oh, gosh. Another attorney, I'll think of his name later. She consulted with Mr. Spector to make sure that he didn't have any objections, because the legal issue came up of conflict of interest, and made it clear that if she comes aboard, she would not be involved with preparing me or examining me as a witness because of potential conflicts in that regard.
Well, Dr. Bodden, didn't you just testify in front of this jury that you didn't know what the phrase conflict of interest meant?
I don't know. I'm telling you what my wife thought. My wife thought that, and that when I'm saying that's from my understanding is conflict of interest has a specific legal definition, which we don't use in medicine so much.
Doctor, isn't a conflict of interest any interest that has a conflict?
No.
No. Okay. That wouldn't be your definition of it.
No.
Okay.
No.
Far too simple, correct?
Pardon me?
That's far too simple a definition.
Excuse me. Objection. He's got 3 questions pending, and it's also argument.
Okay, just go back, phrase it into one question.
I'll move on, Judge.
All right.
The fact is, the reason that your wife would never stand up here and take you on direct examination is because that conflict of interest would be so glaring in front of this jury. Isn't that true?
No, I think because
Jackson's doing a really
someone
good
like
job
yourself
here.
would make it appear to be dirty. That's why, and therefore harm the client in front of a jury.
And in your opinion, there's nothing dirty about it, correct?
No.
All right. And in fact, instead of being here and asking you the questions herself from behind this lectern, she's simply working behind the scenes with Mr. Plord, correct?
No.
The objection is sustained. The answer is stricken.
Thank you.
With regard to the defense in this case and the other experts, I asked you if you had spoken to, or actually I used the word consulted with. You corrected me. You said you've spoken to several of the other experts, including Drs. DeMaio, Spitz, and Lietzma, correct?
Yes.
The expert, any expert in this case, whether for the prosecution, for the defense, either side, as you put it yesterday very eloquently, they are not supposed to have any interest in one side versus the other, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Overall fairness, objectivity, and independence is the hallmark of any of the experts, correct?
I don't mean by hallmark. That's part of being an expert.
But in this case, isn't it true, Dr. Bodden, that you have been orchestrating this defense expert testimony along with your wife from behind the scenes?
That is completely false, Mr. Jackson. Completely false.
Dr. DeMaio and Dr. Spitz.
If I say it sternly enough and point my finger, that'll lead it home for the jury here.
His testimony was 100% completely independent of your testimony, or of your opinions and conclusions. Is that your testimony?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Dr. DeMeo is an expert on gunshot. Dr. Spitz wrote the major book in the world on forensic pathology. I'm a schlemiel compared to them.
And you
Oh, we know Spitz. Spitz was hilarious up here, dude. Like he was good. Like it was good until we got to Jackson, who just started obliterating all of the. Because Spitz worked on JFK. I'm not sure if anybody knows that. He's going to let you know about it 3 or 4 times.
They're the ones. They're the ones
I think Martin Luther King
who are
also.
able to give opinions independent of me. They're not going to take my opinion. And
you
Dr. Lee Smith also, the major book on neuropathology.
And you did not help coordinate. I'm just clearing this up. You didn't help coordinate or orchestrate or work with these other experts in defining how the expert testimony was going to sound.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Let's get to
We talked.
Go ahead.
We explored some things, but I didn't tell them what to. I would be presumptuous to tell them what to say. What they said were their own opinions. Not they didn't pick experts that I could influence.
Objection.
The latter portion is non-responsive. They didn't pick. Everything after that is stricken.
Sorry.
No, it's all
Thank
right.
you.
The rest will remain. The jury will disregard the stricken portion. Now you make up.
Thank you. Dr. Bodden, let's get to that testimony for just a second. Yesterday, I think you testified under questioning by Mr. Plourde that your belief is, your opinion is, that Lana Clarkson's wound was self-inflicted, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he asked you the basis of that opinion, and you gave basically 4 general bases for that opinion, those being the fact that it was an intraoral gunshot wound, correct?
I did say that, yes.
The fact that there was GS.
And for him to have that opinion, you also have to take everything else into a context. And to get there, for her to kill herself, where did that gun come from? It would have come from Phil Spector, who again had a history of pulling out a gun and literally putting it in females' mouths and faces to convince them to stay or not leave his property or his room or wherever the fuck he was at. So you have to put that into context that he believes that Phil Spector has done that deed. He would never say that, I'm sure. But in the moment, Lana's reached out to a gun that's in her face, and she's the one that pushed the trigger backwards. It was in her face already. They've even demonstrated that in this trial. That's the only plausible situation for her to have killed herself with the gun that Phil Spector put in her face. If you really want to paint the whole picture of kind of what his opinion is here, which I think is completely ridiculous.
Saw on her hands and not as much on his hands, and that
was a factor, yes.
And the fact that there was blood and tissue on her and not so much on him, correct?
Yes.
And the fact that there was no scientific evidence to suggest that he was actually holding the gun, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Did you hear Dr. DeMaio's testimony in this case?
No, I did not.
All right. Did you hear him give the basis of his opinion that, number 1, it was an intraoral gunshot wound, number 2, that there was more GSR on her than him, number 3, that there was blood and tissue on her that didn't appear on him, and number 4, that there was no evidence that he was holding the gun? Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
Did you hear Dr. Spitz testify that the basis of his opinion that it was self-inflicted was, number 1, it was an intraoral gunshot wound, number 2, there was more GSR on her than on him, number 3, there was tissue and blood on her that didn't appear on him, and number 4, that there was no evidence that he was holding the gun? Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
Do they sound familiar?
May I finish?
Wait, hold it. Everybody, go ahead and finish.
They sound pretty familiar, and that may be because that's what's obvious to an independent forensic pathologist. Those are important points that you raised.
Let's get to some of your specific findings yesterday based on your testimony. And by the way, your testimony, just so I'm clear before we move on to that, your testimony is that you did not in any way, shape, form, or fashion attempt or assist with Ms. Bodden or any of the other defense lawyers to orchestrate or coordinate, if maybe that's a better word, your testimony with the other independent experts.
Excuse me. Objection. You're asked to answer that 3 times.
Overruled. You may answer.
My opinion is that what your suggestion did not happen.
All right, and the 3 opinions, Dr. Bodden's opinion, Dr. Spitz's opinion, Dr. DeMaio's opinion, were all reached completely and 100% independent of one another, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
All right. Let's talk about the first point very briefly that you brought up, and I think you said this yesterday about intraoral gunshot wounds. You said that in your experience, although they are not as common, as a matter of fact, they're relatively uncommon, you have seen homicides that are in fact intraoral gunshot wounds, correct?
I think I saw one homicide.
Okay, so you agree that an intraoral gunshot wound can be inflicted by oneself, correct? An intraoral gunshot wound can be inflicted by oneself.
Spicy as
And
hell,
it can also
Shelley.
be inflicted at the hand of another human being, correct?
Not quite.
An intraoral gunshot wound cannot be inflicted by another person?
The one case I have is this person was held down by 3 other people in order to be able, you said one person, it has to be multiple persons holding somebody down to stick a gun into somebody's mouth.
Whoa! He is saying that he doesn't even think one person is capable of shooting another. The whole reason that they wouldn't do anything is because of the intimidation of said gun. And if we go back to every other situation that has been testified by other ladies in Phil Spector's life, like 3 or 4 of them early in this trial, they were all put into the same fear-induced position with a gun in their face, and they all did what Phil wanted them to do.
Is what my
You
experience
got to take
is with
how
the one
highly
homicide
intoxicated they both
in
were
20
as
years
well.
we
That's
had in New York City.
crazy for him to even
Your
say all that.
expert opinion,
That's
to a scientific degree of
crazy.
certainty, is that one human being
Oh, he's
wielding
mad.
a gun against an unarmed human being cannot inflict an intraoral gunshot wound. Is that your
That's not
testimony?
what I said. That's not
Sounded
what I
like that's what you said. Am I crazy? That's what I heard.
Well, no, it was vague. He's attempting, I think he just did clarify, but the question was appropriate, so the objection is
Lady
overruled.
D.
You may finish your answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. My opinion is certainly one person can stick a gun in somebody else's mouth and kill him, but I've never seen it with one person because most people, if you're going to stick a gun in the mouth, they're going to close their mouth.
Unless they tell you not to.
But it does.
It's the intimidation factor. What do you mean? No, no, I'm not going to let you put that gun in my mouth. No, the gun is the reason you're doing literally anything. Is this a robbery? What? Oh my God, that's fucking crazy.
But it doesn't happen.
It can't. Wait, let me see if I understand. It can happen,
Right.
but it doesn't happen.
That's
so
correct.
if I understand that statement, you're saying that it's possible, but it's not common, correct?
I'm saying it's possible, but in my experience in thousands of homicides, it has never happened.
So is it your opinion as an expert forensic pathologist and a medical examiner, former medical examiner, that in fact, if you have a gunshot wound that is intraoral in nature, okay, a gunshot wound that's intraoral in nature, the police and the coroner's office, the medical examiner's office need go no further. It's always going to be a self-inflicted wound. Close the case, shut the book, done. Is that your testimony?
That's not my testimony. My testimony is that the police and the medical examiners will not call it a homicide at the scene. They will do further investigations to see if there's something unusual about it. But as happened here, if there's an intraoral gunshot wound, even though the police called it a homicide at the scene, Dr. Pena didn't, because it's so unusual to have an intraoral, and they need more information. And that's why 99% of homicides are called homicides right at the autopsy table. This one wasn't.
Well, they're actually called homicides, not homicides, but...
But you'll agree with me that just because something is an intraoral gunshot wound, that does not define it, doctor. It does not define it as a self-inflicted wound, correct?
Almost defines it, but within reasonable degree of medical certainty is 95%.
They need to put the gloves on.
It can have, it is
Ladies and gentlemen
possible.
in this corner. Did I go in? Ring the damn bell. Ring
to have
the
a
damn
homicide
bell.
with an intraoral
I'll be right back. I use bad.
discharge.
I'm listening, though.
But it's extremely rare.
And you said that there was no evidence of a struggle, correct?
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, yesterday you said that there were tiny little marks on one of the forearms or a tiny mark on one of the forearms of the victim, correct?
Yes.
Can you point to the area of your arm where this tiny mark was?
I would have to see the photo. It was somewhere along the forearm, but I don't know. I can't just point to it without seeing the photograph.
You didn't review your documentation before you testified yesterday?
I did review things, but I don't remember everything.
Did you review your documentation before you testified today?
The forearm? No, I didn't review anything about a forearm today.
So you have no independent recollection as you sit there right now about the nature or the size or even the location of this tiny mark on the forearm that you testified to yesterday concerning Lana Clarkson, correct?
I think there was 2 or 3 small areas on the forearm that had nothing to do with a struggle, in my opinion.
All right.
So I didn't take measurements and all, but there are photographs of it.
Take a look at People's 47 and see if I can refresh your recollection just a little bit about the bruising on the arm. Do you see the area on Lana Clarkson's right wrist on the, I don't know, is that called the posterior or anterior? What is that?
That's the medial aspect, it
Okay.
looks like, of the wrist.
All right, so on the medial aspect of the wrist, do you see that bruise?
Yes.
And you remember that bruise being discussed in the autopsy report, correct?
I would have to review the autopsy report.
As a matter of fact, you were at the autopsy yourself, correct?
Yes.
Were you taking any notes at the autopsy?
No.
You didn't take any notes whatsoever, one way or the other?
No.
Okay. And do you see the inside, and I don't know what aspect that is,
Let's see, let me see, I'm not sure which hand that is.
assume for purposes of this question, that may be a bad picture, Dr. Bodden, that's the right hand.
If it's all the right hand, then that is may I just demonstrate for a second?
Please do.
Yeah. The way it works with the wrist, if the hand is forward, it's zoomed forward in the anatomic position, lateral is near the thumb,
Okay.
and medial is by the pinky.
Okay.
So just not to get confused.
Good. So we have good definitions. Let's assume that is the lateral portion.
If that's the one near the pinky portion, yes,
Actually, that'd be the opposite. That's toward the thumb.
then it's medial. Then it's lateral.
Correct.
And the pinky would be medial.
All right. So we have a contusion on the lateral portion
Yes.
of the wrist, and one on the opposite side, the medial portion of the wrist as well. Both bruises, correct?
Yes.
Both were described as acute bruises, correct?
They're bruises
What's
and
going on with
microscopic.
the cold this year? Jesus Christ, I feel like it warms up by this time. Good Lord. We've had some pretty days, of course, but Jesus, we still got fucking freezing-ass days happening. Good Lord. West Virginia, get your shit together. I hate living in a spot that's only warm for like 3 months of the year.
Sections were made of them.
And after that microscopic examination by Dr. Pena, he determined that they were acute in nature, correct?
They were recent, yes.
And that was my next point, that acute in terms of that definition means that they were recent, correct?
Recent, yes.
All right. And of course, those bruises, if I were to demonstrate on my wrist, the lateral portion and the medial portion would be right here, correct? Left and right.
I think that's approximately correct.
Okay. So for instance, if I were to wrap my hand around here and put pressure on the lateral and the medial, that would be on the same pressure areas that those two bruises appear, correct?
That could be, yes.
All right. Then there is a... There's one more photograph that I'd like to show you, Dr.
It's already been marked.
This has already been marked.
All right.
Jesus.
People's 46, Your Honor.
Okay.
Dr. Bodden, take a look at the, as I'm learning your anatomy, I think that would be the lateral portion of the left hand, correct?
Is that the pinky side?
Toward
or
the pinky.
Yeah, that would be called medial.
Medial, all right.
The inside, it's
I keep
called.
getting them backwards. All right, toward the pinky, how's that?
Yes, that's better.
You're aware that there was an acute bruise that was found toward that side of Lana Clarkson's hand as well, correct?
I can't quite see it, but I would accept your description.
And that was described by Dr. Pena, thank you, Sudie. That was described by Dr. Pena as being acute in nature or recent, correct?
I believe so.
And
yes.
you're aware that his testimony here in front of the jury and the grand jury as well was that in his opinion that recent bruising would have been within, at the very outside, 24 hours, more likely within about 6 or 8 hours of the time of death, correct?
I would agree that probably was within 24 hours.
Okay.
And, right.
And of course, Lana Clarkson was in Phil Spector, as you understand the evidence in this case, Lana Clarkson was in Phil Spector's presence within the last 24 hours before her death, correct?
For a few hours before death, yes.
Right. Are those the tiny marks that you were talking about in your direct examination?
I believe so. I think there were some other marks too. I'm not sure, but those are among the marks that I would have been referring to.
All right. You talked about gases in the mouth, and I think you described what you consider to be, and by the way, with regard to the gases in the mouth, that is nowhere, you didn't discuss any gases in the mouth or any blood spatter flying out in your 2.5-page report, did you?
I don't believe so.
All right. So the first time we heard about that was, from you at least, was yesterday on the witness stand.
I'm sure you've heard about it from
Yeah,
other
okay,
witnesses,
Lynn.
but
Hope you're having a good weekend.
from
Welcome
me
in.
on the witness stand, yes.
All right. What is the basis of your scientific
Dude, I haven't been to the beach in so long, man. I miss the beach.
opinion that gases forced tissue out in this particular case?
Well, the basis in large measure is what I've seen in other intraoral gunshot wounds, where lots of tissue either goes out with the exit wound, with the gases, with the large amount of gases confined in a small
I'm actually ready for some swamp ass at this point in time. Honest to God, like I'll take a shower. Jesus.
space, bringing lots of tissue and blood out. Or if the bullet doesn't go out, creating another hole for the gases to escape, then they come backwards out of the nose and mouth. And I've seen that in many, few dozen situations.
And you're aware, Dr. Bodden, that in this particular case, the facts of this case are that backspatter, you know what I mean by backspatter?
Yeah, backspatter, I'd have to define it. Backspatter usually refers to a bullet going into skin. And the some blood spatters come back toward the where the bullet went in the direction where the bullet came from. That doesn't take into account gases. See, gases do something different. So even though this is backspatter, it's really a different kind of backspatter than any other part of the body. The only part of the body that gases come into account is when it's the discharge is in the mouth. So we'd have to just realize there's a difference between backspatters in all other parts of the body and backspatter in the mouth.
And of course, you have talked about this particular subject matter with Dr. DeMaio as well, correct?
I think I did discuss that, sure.
Did you coordinate your testimony together about this particular
absolutely
issue?
Not.
All right. So
absolutely
any the consistency between you and Dr. DeMaio would simply be coincidence.
It's not coincidence, it's science.
Overrule the answer, Stan.
This is the first trial. Sadly, the second trial is not on court TV. I don't know if they didn't air it or even have cameras in there, but that one's not findable, at least on courttv.com.
Science. Can you point me to the science that specifically documents, the literature that specifically documents what you're talking about as far as this gas and expulsion of gas out of the mouth?
Yeah, Dr. DeMayo's textbook on gunshot wounds, Dr. Spitz's
Can you point me to a page? I'm sorry to do
Let him
that.
finish his answer.
Dr. Spitz's work on forensic pathology. I'm not talking about something that's unusual, unique.
Okay.
This is Forensic Pathology 101 that we teach the new residents on their first day on the job.
Well, that may be. I'm asking you for a specific reference. Can you give me the page number in Dr. DeMaio's book that talks about these gases coming out of an intraoral gunshot wound, please?
No.
Can you give me the page number in the medical legal book that Dr. Spitz wrote, please?
No.
Why not?
One, I don't have it. I don't have the book. But two, what you're talking about is common knowledge of
I'm
forensic
just asking for the
pathologists.
page number.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to allow him to finish his answer. Good. Go ahead and finish your answer.
Yeah, I did, Your Honor. Thank
You finished?
Sorry.
Okay. That's
All right,
good.
you said 1, you don't have the books, and 2, because it's common knowledge. 3, because it's not in the books. Isn't that true?
I'm sure that's not true. There are a lot of materials in the books, and one has to be able to read about gases coming out of the muzzle of the weapon.
Okay, so if in
It
fact...
may not refer specifically to Lana Clarkson, but it refers to the amount of gases that come out of the muzzle of a weapon in order to drive a bullet 900 feet per second for a long distance. That's a lot of gases.
And we're talking about the gases and the pressures inside the mouth in an intraoral gunshot wound. That's what I'm asking you about.
Yes, sir.
If I gave you time, could you go to Dr. DeMaio's book or Dr. Spitz's book and find me the page number references, please?
If you gave me time, I could show you photographs from cases that I've handled. I'd be glad to do that.
I'm asking you about Dr. DeMaio's literature and Dr. Spitz's literature specifically.
I would be glad to go back and show areas in the book that refer to this, sure.
Okay, and specifically what we're talking about for the jury's edification is the specific pressures that are involved in an intraoral gunshot wound inside the mouth. You can find that literature.
Yeah.
The answer is
Mr.
no.
Jackson, as you know, being an expert or being a forensic pathologist combines lots of different pieces of information. To the extent that you would like me to find something that discusses the amounts of pressures and gases that come out of the muzzle of a weapon, I'd be glad to find that for you. To find something that refers specifically to Lana Clarkson, I don't know if I could find something, because every death is different.
Dr. Bodden, with regard to the and I'm going to call it back spatter. I understand you defined it in a way. I want a phrase that we can all kind of follow. The blood that came out of the mouth, okay? The blood that came out of the mouth at the point of the impact of the bullet to the back of the throat. Let's just use it for my purposes. Let's call that back spatter, because I don't have a better definition for it, all right? With regard to the back spatter in this particular case, you're aware of where that back spatter went or how far it went, correct?
I'm sorry, where?
Yes. The state of the evidence is that blood came not only out of the oral cavity, but also out of the nasal cavities, and I think that has to be included. That is the state of the evidence.
Well, he can ask it if he wants to break it down, and then you want to go into it. As long as it's not misleading. The question is phrased, as I understood it, isn't misleading. There may be other factors, and it may have something to do with whatever he's asked and whatever his opinion is. And certainly, you can go back into it. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Are you aware in this particular case, let's use the facts of this case, are you aware of how far blood was found at the crime scene?
CH asking any thoughts on the next trial for Murder Church as when this one is over, which will probably be closer to the end of summer, I'd imagine, maybe before, maybe during summer. But I'm going to have a voting party. We're going to have probably a voting Feral Friday stream, just like I did on Friday with the movies. I'll get a bunch of different trials together, and then we'll have the Buzz Nation. We'll have you guys choose what we go into next. That's how this one got picked, actually. So yeah, we'll pick some different trials, some different flavors, and let you guys kind of pick what's going on. We'll have like a mini tournament with eight trials, something to that effect, and have a round, like 3 rounds to a finals, and see who wins.
From the face of Lana Clarkson.
Well, they might as well put the gloves on, like I said before. I'm going to be paying attention to the length.
I'm aware
I've enjoyed this,
Just
but it's
blood, not
blot.
two fragments and not so
Just
other
blood.
things. Blood that came just from the mouth, not blood on the banister or blood other places.
Not transferred
Yeah.
blood, no. Not
Just
just back spatter, doctor, just back spatter.
I'm not familiar with the testimony that carefully, but I think 2 or 3 feet is what I recall.
Okay. You recall it wouldn't be inconsistent with your opinion or your understanding of the evidence if you were to find out that the back spatter basically went down to the hemline or thereabouts of Lana Clarkson and a surrounding area on the chair and the armrest of the chair.
Where
Correct?
back spatter was found.
Correct. Correct?
That's from my
Yes.
stomach.
And no other back spatter
my stomach
was found any further
came to
out,
the
down
mic.
on her
It was very
legs,
loud.
down on her shins, down on her shoes. You're aware of that too.
On Lana Clarkson.
Correct. That's what I'm asking
We're
about.
not
just on
talking
her,
about back spatter that could be further away on Mr. Spector.
Well, all I'm asking about is the back spatter. I mean, where you put Mr. Spector in your opinion, it's a completely separate issue. I'm talking about the back spatter from the gunshot.
The back spatter, as I recall, and I would rely better on other people's testimony who are expert in that. Yeah, it sounds right. On Lana Clarkson up to her knees or
All
something.
right. So, is it your opinion? Did I just understand you to opine that Mr. Spector would have been standing further away and
No,
gotten that blood on him from?
That's a different issue, yeah.
And I'm asking
Possible.
about that issue now.
Possible.
Okay, so is it your opinion, based on your review of all the evidence, is it your expert opinion that Mr. Spector was standing some distance away and got the back spatter on his jacket from the gunshot event?
Yeah, I think that from the gunshot event, he could have gotten back spatter on his jacket 3 or 4 feet away.
How much further?
I don't know, 4 feet.
Say 4 feet total, maximum?
I don't know. That's approximately 4 feet.
All right.
Plus or minus 1 or 2.
And what do you base that on?
Base it on other situations with back spatter can go that far.
Okay, is it your opinion that in this case, and you've reviewed a lot of the information in this case, correct?
Yes.
Is it your expert opinion in this case that Phil Spector, may I approach?
Yes.
Was standing, I don't know how far 4 feet is or so, but let's say this is 4 or 5 feet. He was standing at least this far at the point of impact of the gunshot, and that's how he got the back spatter on his jacket. Is that your opinion?
My opinion is he definitely could have gotten blood spatter on his jacket given the gases coming out of the mouth with the back spatter. The gases carry the back spatter.
And is that how you define what you saw on his white jacket? This is back spatter from the gunshot event with him standing 4 feet away.
It could have happened, yes.
Uh-oh. Phil shot. We haven't had a lot of Phil shots outside of me popping up the ghoul right there. And he's wide awake for this one. Usually, sometimes he's passing out over there. Sometimes he's taking a little snoozle.
With regard to the tongue, you mentioned the tongue yesterday, and you were very detailed about your...
Now, I can see why also. This has been very spicy. This has been very interesting. As you can see, Plord and Rosen are also very interested in kind of chatting amongst themselves about how this is going
testimony concerning the damage to Miss Clarkson's tongue. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
You indicated that, in your opinion, there was some kind of a defect on the right side of Lana Clarkson's tongue, correct?
I'm sorry, defect?
You called it pinpoint lacerations. Those were your words.
Oh, I thought that in the tongue or the mucosa?
Tongue.
I don't recall that specifically. There was a laceration of the top part of the tongue, yes.
Were there any other lacerations on the tongue?
On the tongue?
Correct.
Well, there were a couple of lacerations right near each other on the top part of the tongue.
On which
and there were
side?
lots of bruises.
On which side?
As I recall, on a little, there's one sort of in the midline and one slightly to the left.
All right. There was a...
Before you go on to your next question, we've arrived at time for a recess.
We have reached a year on this case. We are at officially over 1 year since this trial started. Again, in real life, this was a 6-month trial. and I do about 3 hours a week. Sometimes I'll throw in a couple of extra time frames, but yeah, it's taken us an actual year so far plus.
Success, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind the
We still have
admonition,
quite a while
15
to
minutes.
go.
Thank you. 15 minutes.
Okay, we're getting ready to go to the next part 6 of Dr. Biden. Let's see how long that's going to be. He's been up here for a few weeks now with us, so 46 more minutes. And we are on part 196 of about 230-ish videos, so
Back on the record.
keep on rolling, folks. That's all we can do. Again, hey, real quick, everyone that's in here, if there's new folks, I do see a lot of new names coming through here. Maybe you've come through because of Defense Diaries. I was lucky enough to have a show with them and actually appear on their channel this week, which was freaking awesome. Super cool. We were talking Brian Koberger, Idaho 4. That's something I'm going to be continuing to go into. Of course, we do Phil Spector here every Sunday morning. Sometimes we do it through the week. We'll sprinkle it in. I do some Ted Bundy content right now because we are reading The Stranger Beside Me in the book club. A lot of really cool things. And if you're not in the book club, the only way to become a book club member and get into those streams on Tuesday night is to be an official Buzz Nation member right here on YouTube. So, and I appreciate anybody that jumps in. It really helps us out here on the channel, and you get some extra cool content as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming through. Like I said, this coming Friday, I've got the Glairer, Will the Glairer coming in to hang out with us. We're going to be going to Kick, of course, to watch an absolutely insane movie. And anybody that watched the movie Evil Tunes with me, Dan, and Lisa, Miss Shorty, knows that it's going to be a wild one because it's a movie by the same director. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. Let's keep rolling.
President is heretofore.
We are still working on a will. Anybody that wants to get on a will, a physical will. Kathy, thank you so much for keeping that rolling this morning, but I think we still need about 5 names till a will spin.
Just the breaks are taking a little
Thanks,
longer
guys.
than planned because
Keep rolling.
we have I understand there's a bathroom problem. There's lots I can do. There's some things I can't do. You're sort of
hell?
on your own on that one, but we'll take that into account.
What do you mean a bathroom problem? It's out of order and nobody can use the bathroom? That is a problem,
You may
sir.
proceed.
Judge, there's a matter of housekeeping.
I need
think
more
made a
detail on the
mistake
bathroom
yesterday.
problem.
I announced
Just one?
just one.
All right.
Only one.
All right.
The buttons. There was a photograph of the buttons, and I think I announced that it was People's 132. That should be corrected so everybody's clear. It's People's 131.
Okay. Thank you.
Sudie, would you do me a favor and put up 187? Dr. Bodden, I want to change gears. I thought of something that I failed to ask you yesterday when I had this photograph on the
Oh,
overhead.
excuse me. Shelley corrected me. It was 9 months in real time. Holy shit. My God. This week. Yeah, this coming Feral Friday. What is that date? The 30th. Yeah, May 30th. This coming Friday.
That's People's 187.
Had a lot of fun
There are
with Bob.
2 areas.
Thank you so much, Jim.
If you look at the jacket's shoulders, that are white, very obviously white. One just under the lapel,
It was fun.
on the jacket's right side, your left as you're facing it, and then one on the jacket's shoulder, which is the jacket's left shoulder, the right side as you're facing it. You see those
There
white
we
areas?
go. That's what I'm talking about. Real quick, keep giving a pause in here. Lacey Ann, welcome to hell in here. Thank you so much. Just become a member. And to not only do you become a member here at the Buzz Nation, and now you're also in the exclusive book club and get access to all kinds of really cool videos that are in the video section and lives. You also get on a physical wheel where once we reach 12 names, I will give it a spin, and you could win some really cool publicly buzzed loot. So thank you very much, and I'll give you a loot. Hell yeah, thank you so much. Getting in there, Lacey Ann. Welcome in. Let me get your name on here so I do not forget. I believe we are now 4 names away, and anytime we get any new members here in the Buzz Nation, make sure you drop them hell yes, the effing oaths, the Murder Church logos, the beers. You have access to all of those emojis now also, Lacey Ann. Thank you so much. Welcome the hell in here. I love it. Love it.
Yes, sir.
You testified yesterday, Dr. Bodden, and I just want to clear this up, that there were tissue samples taken from the jacket.
Damn, hold on, we're not done. Lacey said fuck. Let's gift one out. Lady D, who is also new in here, getting one. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome in here.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. Hanging and banging.
We don't mess around.
You gotta fight for your right.
Damn, Lacey getting on here twice in a row. And again, there is no limit to how many times you can get on the wheel. that just doubles, triples, however many times you get on there, your chances of winning some cool stuff. Hell yes. Thank you so much, Lacey Ann. Fuck yeah, love it. All those emojis dropping in the chat right now, that's all for you. And lady, welcome in here. Again, new folks, go check out the video section and the lives for really cool content. Again, on the book club, for The Stranger Beside Me, the Ted Bundy, that book that we read, I do detailed notes every single week. So if you go back to the very beginning, if you've never read that book, you will get a pretty good breakdown of what's actually going on in The Stranger Beside Me. So again, thank you so much. And then we have people like this, Tina coming through, a member for 16 months. Thank you so much. I love you guys, man. I love you guys so much. And I always like to throw a little
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary for those folks.
Including some samples
Love
from
it,
the
guys.
areas of the jacket around her arms and her shoulders, as well as the buttons.
Grow
Correct?
this thing.
Those two white areas
Trying to.
indicate areas that were sampled by the defense team, and tissue samples were taken from those areas, correct?
I will accept what you say. I wasn't there when that was done.
Okay, but your understanding is one area was right along in here,
Yes.
and I'm pointing to the right breast of my jacket, and then
Yeah.
one area was here on the left shoulder.
I believe so.
All right. Getting back to, and thank you for that, Dr. Bodden. I apologize about going out of order a little bit. With regard to, let's see if we can get rid of that. The tongue, we were talking about the tongue just before we took a break, and Lana Clarkson's tongue was examined by the medical examiner, Dr. Pena, at the time.
We're only
of the
3 names
autopsy,
away
correct?
now. Hell
Yes.
yes.
And you looked at the tongue at that time,
Love
correct?
it.
Yes.
You
3
then
names till a
memorialized
spin,
your
and again,
findings and
I've got a
conclusions
physical will.
in that
Every
2.5-page report that we've talked about, correct?
Written memorialization, yes.
Correct.
Got it
When
rolled
I
up.
say memorialization, that's what I mean by that. It's written down, something that is scribed, written, either typewritten or handwritten.
Okay.
With regard to the lacerations that you talked
thanks
about
so much,
yesterday
Lady
with
D.
Mr.
No, welcome in
Kaur,
here. I'm just
there's
glad
no
you're in
mention in
here.
your report
You seem
about
super
these
cool,
lacerations
kind,
being caused
nice.
by impact with the teeth material, correct?
No. When I refer to lacerations, I refer to the top of the tongue. In addition to tears in the top of the tongue, there are multiple little punctate lesions. Some are lacerated. They're mostly contusions, bruises, not tears.
And you indicated yesterday, so that we're talking about the same thing, and all I want to get to is these, you called them yesterday pinpoint lacerations, at least that's what I jotted down. Now you're talking about punctate lesions, and I don't want to...
Pinpoint, what I would have said, I think, unless I made a mistake, is pinpoint lesions.
All right, pinpoint lesions, and you said that those pinpoint lesions match the upper molars of Miss Clarkson's teeth, correct?
Those are two different things. I think on the tongue, there are 2 areas in the back where there are bruises. One is the bruise that Dr. Pena felt might be a poking with a gun on the left side. There was another similar lesion on the right side, both of which on those I thought that they were upper molar imprint marks. And those were pinpoint hemorrhages matching the biting surface of the molar.
Did you have available to you any of Lana Clarkson's tooth or teeth impressions, any castings of her impressions when you came to this conclusion?
No.
When did you come to this conclusion, Doctor?
Holy shit. Lacey Ann. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm a little speechless right now. 5 memberships gifted out by Lacey Ann. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say. Hold on. I'm going to go full screen so I can show the proper love to everybody. Also give everyone the welcome in sound clip.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Deanne Bibba, I'm going to ruin your name. Deanna, welcome the hell in here. Susan Prizer, welcome in here. Delta Denante, welcome in here. Fred Payne, welcome in here. And AZ, welcome back to being Buzz Nation members. Holy shnikes. And remember, folks, anytime we get new members in here, make sure you lace them up with some beers, with some hell yes, with some effing oaths, with a what that little tornado there on the end. What is that thing? Ladies and gentlemen, holy cow.
This is gun country.
It is. This is actually gun country over here in the Buzz Nation neck of the woods. Holy shnikes. I'm telling you right now.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Damn, I love that so much. And again, Lacey, upping her chances, now has her name 3 times on this will and a very good opportunity and a chance to win some prizes. Holy crap. I'm blown away by that one. 2 spots left on the wheel. Holy crap. Oh my God, Lady D coming through here gifting out 5. We're not done yet. Holy shnikes, we're not done yet.
I don't believe you.
My God, everything's getting nuts right now.
I'm sober enough to know what I'm doing.
I'm just hitting sound effects right now. I'm so excited. Lady D, thank you so much. Marlon Dalton, welcome in here. My King of Kings, welcome in here. Duncan Flones, get in here. Copper Ginja, welcome in here. And LMC Cali Girl, welcome in here. Holy crap, the chat is going absolutely insane. Showing love right now to all these new folks. My God. And that right there gets you on the wheel, Lady D. Ready. I think we're only one name away now to getting this wheel completed. My God, I am blown away right now by the niceness from the fine folks that's coming through the Buzz Nation. Oh, that's it! Lacey just took the last spot. Ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Goodman, welcome in here. That is it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wheel spin right here on Murder Church thanks to these fine folks. Let me just do a double count, make sure I'm not messing this up. My God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That is it. I am going to start a wheel right now, and you guys have just blown me away. Holy cow. The chat's going nuts. Wow. Let's go. Let's go. Welcome to the party, pal. All new people, welcome in here. Thank you so much. This is wild. So yeah, right now, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start working on a will for you fine folks because I have just been blown away. Holy shit. Buzz Nation. Don't forget, Buzz Nation stuff in the live section. Buzz Nation exclusive stuff in the video section. Loads of really cool content just for you guys. Wow.
Well, my general impression was at the time I looked at the tongue at the autopsy was that there were injuries inside the mouth, in the back of the tongue, top of the tongue, a fracture of the hard palate above the tongue, all due to the gaseous expansion.
Thank you so much.
And to various burnt and unburnt powder granules, perhaps some burnt and unburnt powder granules. I didn't focus
right here,
on that until
20
after
months.
I was told that Dr.
Dude, I got the best folks in
had
here.
testified, after consulting with you, Mr. Jackson, that the back left bruise was a poke with a gun. And at that time, when I looked at the tongue, again, the photos that Dr. Pena took were taken under his direction. To me, they seemed to be symmetrical. There were 2 bruises in the back of the tongue, one in the left that Dr. Pena referred to, one in the right, and both of them had little imprints of the biting surface of the upper back molars. So that's when I felt that it wasn't a poking with the muzzle of a gun, but it was the impact of the tongue against the
Lacey
upper
has a
jaw.
lot of
In
chances
fact,
here. Holy shit. Yeah, I'll do this will
the
spin
short
after this
answer
video.
to that question
Holy
is
crap.
after Dr. Pena testified,
So
that's when
exciting.
you began to
Thank you, guys.
review or revisit the issue of the bruising on the tongue, correct?
That's very fair, yes.
All right, and you did not have available to you, Dr. Bodden, a casting of her teeth, for instance?
Objection's been answered.
Overruled. It's part of a series of questions.
That's
Yes,
correct.
Sam, I am.
So you
Welcome in
reviewed
here.
photographs that were taken at the autopsy, correct?
Photographs, and I think there were photographs of
Thank
casting
you.
of the teeth, but
All right,
I didn't
and-
have casting of the teeth.
So-
And with
Cool.
regard to your review, you were at the autopsy and you saw the inspection, if you will, of the tongue, the examination of the tongue. As a matter of fact, you even saw the tongue being removed, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what you put in your report was there was a gunshot laceration of the upper portion of the tongue with surrounding
Dude, that's
soot
so
in the oral
fucking-
cavity, correct?
You just blew my
Yes.
mind,
That's the
Lacey.
only
Holy
sentence you
crap.
wrote in your entire report about the tongue or any bruising
exciting.
on the tongue, correct?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yet you simply remember that the shape of the teeth of her upper molars are consistent with these pinpoint lesions that you saw in the photographs? Is that your testimony?
No, it's not that I remember. It's that that's what was documented, memorialized by color photographs.
So you're not saying, all right, just so we're clear, you're not saying that you can say to any degree of certainty that the teeth, her actual molars, match the pinpoint lesions that you're talking about?
You're right. I'm not a forensic dentist, and I didn't match the molars to Lana Clarkson's teeth. However, as a forensic pathologist, those were the only teeth that were there, and the imprints on the on the back of the tongue were teeth imprints. So I assumed it was Lana Clarkson, but I didn't. I'm not a forensic dentist.
Take a look, if you will. This has been previously marked, and Your Honor, I can't remember what it is. I'll describe it for the record.
It's the one it's a diagram of the tongue.
Correct. It's from the autopsy report. You remember this, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Doctor, I want to draw your attention.
You can't recall it right now, but
I'll have Sudi look for it while we're talking about it. The autopsy was conducted by Dr. Pena, and this diagram was filled out by Dr. Pena, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you felt like Dr. Pena did I think you said a very fine autopsy, is that right?
I can't not look at this diagram of the tongue and not think it looks like a cobra, like a snake.
I believe so, yes, in my opinion. He did a good job.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. And he was looking specifically for lesions, abrasions, bruising, things of that nature in the oral cavity, since that's the area the gunshot was suffered, correct? And that would have been normal protocol.
Normal protocol would be to look at everything, right?
As a matter of fact, he even took, and I think we've learned throughout the course of this case, that when a forensic pathologist finds a bruise and wants to investigate the bruise further, y'all can actually cut the bruise out and look at it microscopically, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're aware that he did find a bruise on the left, correct?
Yes.
And he found a laceration in the midline area of the top of the tongue, correct?
Yes.
And he described that laceration as being consistent with the gunshot, is that right?
As I recall, yes.
And that laceration, I think he described it as stellate in nature, correct?
I believe he used that term.
All right.
It was it wasn't a clean cut, it was little emanations from it.
All right. And
that would
I can see a sock puppet
okay.
too, actually.
As far as the bruising is concerned, the only bruise that he noted was the bruise on the left side of the tongue, then some bruising toward the very back that appeared to be from the soot and the stippling and things like that, correct?
And the gases, yes.
All right. And he did not indicate, and the photos do not indicate any pinpoint lesions on that left side of the tongue, correct?
That's not true. If you put the photographs show, when you say pinpoint tooth impression on the left side here, but there's also one on the right side that he didn't include, but it's easily seen on the photograph that he took of the tongue.
When you saw this, when was the first time you saw this diagram? And by the way, I've learned that this is people's 44 for identification. Actually, it's not for identification. This has been moved in. People's 44. Doctor, when did you first see this document?
I would have seen this about over a year later, when it was given to me during discovery when Miss Abramson was the attorney.
And you reviewed this entire document. Can we go to the full document, Sudi? You reviewed this entire document as well as the rest of the autopsy report, correct?
I reviewed the entire many pages of the autopsy report, which included that document, yes.
And the whole purpose of your consultation in this case, and the whole purpose of you going at Mr. Shapiro's request to attend the autopsy, was to ensure that you had sort of firsthand knowledge about the findings and conclusions and anatomical findings at the autopsy, correct?
You give me too much credit. The main reason I went to the autopsy at the behest of Mr.
Phil looks mad at Bodden, and Bodden's trying to help you, bud.
Shapiro was to determine, was this an outside of the mouth gunshot wound or an inside? It was an outside it would be his opinion was homicide. It was inside, he might treat it differently. So that was what Mr. Shapiro wanted to know. And I looked at everything, but I didn't remember everything.
All right, and obviously you wanted to look at everything for accuracy to make sure that the autopsy findings that were memorialized in the report, part of which this was, reflected the actual autopsy that was conducted in your presence, correct?
Well, in general, yes, in general.
And did you seek to, once you saw this page, did you seek to correct or disagree with Dr. Pena's findings and call Dr. Pena, for instance, and say, hey, you missed a bruise on the right side of the tongue?
You give me too much credit for remembering things.
I've done that twice now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
It won't happen again, Doctor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson.
The position I was in was after I received this, I didn't remember everything, but I knew that everything had been photographed. And at some point, I compared photographs and the autopsy protocol that you have. And I didn't really look at the tongue, as I remember, until after Dr. Pena testified that this was a bruise caused by the muzzle of the weapon. And I said, I didn't remember that. And I then reviewed it, and I didn't remember, in all fairness, I didn't remember that there were other bruises around. I had to look at the photographs and say, hey, there are other bruises around, and they have a pattern. These bruises, it's not just a black and blue mark that you see under the eye, that there was a pattern to those bruises, and that's what I mean by the imprint of the upper teeth pattern.
And if there was a pattern, that would be something that you would expect an experienced forensic pathologist to see and note.
It varies. It depends. Look, with like an experienced lawyer, sometimes you see things, sometimes you don't. Sometimes we see things, sometimes we don't, and we don't realize the importance of things. This doesn't become important to me until after Dr. Pena referred to it.
And in fact, the bruise on the left side of the tongue is properly deemed to be a blunt force trauma type of bruise, correct?
That's fair, yes.
All right. And in fact, a piece of steel being put in the mouth could be consistent with a blunt force type of trauma to the tongue, correct? If that piece of steel is pressed against the tongue or pushed against the tongue, correct?
Theoretically, yes, but that's not the way it happens. But I want to agree with one thing. If there's an injury caused by a piece of steel like the muzzle of a gun, that would be called blunt force trauma, yes.
Thank you.
If that happened.
All right. With regard to Lana Clarkson's position, Mr. Plord asked you some questions about her positioning, Dr. Bodden, and your first statement to Mr. Plord was, it's not proper to opine about the position of the decedent before the pictures were taken. Do you remember stating that?
I think that what I said was, it's not proper to assume that the position of the body when the pictures are taken is the same as when the injury occurred. That is, that bodies move after being injured, and what we see is the final status of the body, but that doesn't mean there wasn't any movement in between.
Didn't you say yesterday on direct examination to a question posed by Mr. Plord, Mr. Plord, it's not proper to opine about the position of the body before the picture was taken. In other words, you were saying, I really can't give you an idea of what the position of the body was before that photograph was taken. Isn't that what you were saying?
No.
Excuse me, objection. I think this quote is Dayton yesterday.
And I have to be honest, I can't say that he didn't say that. I do remember him, what he said he testified to. I remember that, so that's all I can say. So is it your recollection that's what you testified to about Mr. Jackson, given the specific language you want?
I have. Okay. That's the specific. I just want to know if you recollect testifying to that yesterday. Basically, that it's not proper, and this is the beginning of the questioning on this area. You said it's not proper to testify about the position of the body before the photograph was taken. And if you don't remember saying that, just let me know.
What I intended to say is that it's not proper to assume that the position of the body was the way it looks in the photograph.
All right, and I think you described something, and this is what I'm asking about. You described something called reflex action after the gunshot, correct?
Yes.
And you said that that's a possibility, correct?
Yes.
Now, you don't know that that happened in this case. You're just saying there is a universe of possibilities, and from your medical experience, that is one possibility, correct?
It was more than a possibility. My experience is that arms and legs move after spinal cord or brain injuries commonly. I don't know what happened here, but they commonly move. And so the way the body is found in the photographs is not necessarily the way the body was, the arms and legs were, 1-2 minutes after the injury.
And you liken this to hanging, correct? As a matter of fact, you said dancing from a string, correct? Or dancing from a rope.
Dancing from a rope, yes.
And that would refer to back in the Old West, I guess, when people were hung, their feet might move or dangle or whatever, correct?
Yeah, that was referring to, and it's not just the hanging, but the purpose of the hanging was to break the cervical 1 and 2 and damage the cervical spine, just as what happened here from the bullet. So that, and it was, people used to come and they used to see actually arms and legs moving for minutes after the person hanged. And that's because of reflex activities that go on.
So is it your testimony that Lana Clarkson, her hands and feet were moving about for 1 to 2 minutes after the gunshot went off?
My testimony is it cannot be assumed with any reasonable degree of medical certainty that after the gunshot wound, she was immediately in the position she was found in. I would think that's unlikely.
How long did she move?
I don't know.
How much did she move, doctor?
I don't know.
What?
Although it's common, and I must say, for legs to extend and arms to extend in the decerebrate positioning, I think that Dr. Liestma referred to.
But you're not a neuropathologist and you're not claiming to be one, correct?
No, but I see bodies at all. One thing I do see that Dr. Liestma...
You're not a neuropathologist, correct?
He is explaining his answer. I'll allow it. You may finish.
Yeah. Dr. Liestma is super neuropathologist. He doesn't go to scenes of death. I go to lots of scenes of death, and I've seen lots of extended legs, and relatives and friends and witnesses say, yeah, that happened after the person was shot or after he was stabbed in the neck or something. So that I'm aware from scene visits that these things happen, even though I may not have the neuropathologic expertise that Dr. Liestma has.
Is it your testimony and your opinion, Dr. Bodden, that after Ms. Clarkson was shot, that she danced from the end of a rope and moved around the way that I'm moving around, my legs, my arms, my feet?
No, if you're hanging, then there's a lot of dancing. If there's...
I'm going to object. There's no hanging issue in this case.
They're using it as descriptive to explain. Everybody understands that. The objection is overruled.
You know, my opinion is that it's very possible and probable that Lana Clarkson, given the nature of her injury across the cervical spine area, moved her arms and legs and maybe even neck after she was shot, which has to be taken into consideration.
Earlier in this trial, at one point, they talk about this, and I think even Bodden has talked about it. They talk about this person that had shot themselves. I believe they shoot themselves in the head like this. I don't think they do it through the mouth, but they were in a police office. They were being interviewed by a police officer. The police officer leaves the room, but I guess they didn't search this guy. This guy had a gun on himself, and I guess he knew the jig was up. I don't know, but he shot himself in the head and ended it right there in the office. And after they talked about this, you can find that instance online and go watch it. And the one thing that is interesting about it is because after he shoots himself, he does continue to move. I'm not saying he's moving with intention, but his body still is getting into a position after the blow, after the shot to the head, after he's dead or dying, actively dying. He's still he gets into a slumped position, very much similar to the way they explain Lana Clarkson is as well in the chair, and the picture that we've seen of Lana where she's just completely, I don't know how she didn't completely slide out of the chair, but she didn't. And the video that I saw, which was extremely traumatizing, I wouldn't recommend anybody go and watching the video, but he did something very similar.
Consideration when evaluating blood spatter evidence, for example.
Well, that's my question. How long, in your opinion, if you're going to opine that Lana Clarkson moved her hands, her legs, and her neck, her head, How long was she moving? Her hands, her legs, and her neck?
And it was quick, too. It wasn't very
Could be
long.
very,
but
very
there was
How much was she moving her
There was
hands,
some extra
her,
movement
her legs, and her neck?
Your Honor, I'm going to interpose an objection now. Mr. Jackson's asked this same question Dr. Biden a number of times. He's asked him answer.
It's also about contamination. I don't think we've reached that stage yet. The objection is overruled. You may proceed.
How much?
I don't know.
So your opinion is that she was moving, but you can't tell the jurors how long she was moving, and you can't tell the jurors what part of her body she was moving, and you can't tell the jurors how much she was moving, correct?
Now to object?
No, it is if you want, but the objection is overruled.
I'll keep trying.
Okay.
We'll get to that point.
That's correct.
All right.
That's correct.
With regard to, I think you indicated that one of the issues that supported your opinion that this was self-inflicted was the blood spatter that was found on Lana Clarkson's hands, correct?
Yes.
Describe the blood spatter that was found on her hands as you understand it.
As I understand it, there was one directional spatter on the left hand that had what I call the bowling pin appearance, going away from the body if the thumb was near the mouth. There was one 90-degree angle spatter on the left hand, on the right hand. There was other spatters, a number of other spatters on the backs of the hands that were not properly documented and that were not that are described by the criminalist, who then asked for photographs to be taken, and photographs didn't come out well. Apparently, didn't come out properly. And when the body was moved to the morgue, the hands were not protected. It is normal procedure to put paper bags around hands of any suspicious death to protect any evidence that's on the hands when the body is moved to the morgue. That wasn't done here, and for whatever reason, we don't have photographs and we don't have samples of what the criminalist at the crime scene said were blood spatters on the backs of the hands.
The criminalist, Jamie Lintamoot, did testify in this case. Are you aware of her testimony?
I'm aware she testified, and I'm aware of some of her testimony, yes.
Assume for purposes of my question that her testimony was that she saw high-impact spatter on the back wrist on both of Lana Clarkson's hands, very faint, very small, I guess I should say, and she pointed to this area of both of her wrists, okay? For purposes of my question.
Which are the backs of the wrist, right?
The backs of the wrist, medial, lateral, I don't know, I can't remember.
Backs is fine.
Okay, we're in agreement with basically where they were. Mr. Plord asked you yesterday if that directional spatter, as well as other blood spatter that you're aware of, was consistent with Miss Clarkson having her hands on the gun itself, correct?
I think on the gun or on the other hand. One hand may have been on the other hand, but in the vicinity of the gun, yeah.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah, on the gun or on, I sort of vision it could be the left hand on the right hand on the weapon.
In the vicinity of the gun, correct?
Well, they would have to be in the vicinity of the mouth and the gun, yes.
Okay, so for instance, if we look at photograph People's 189, you see how that mannequin is set up and somebody is seated with his hands around the wrists of the mannequin in what could be reasonably described as a defensive posture. You see that?
I see. Could you enlarge that?
And we're trying, I think.
I can see the right hand.
Look how much more taller Michael Bodden is to Linda. He's a pretty tall dude.
On the wrist.
There we go. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see the whole hand. That's the pinky, I guess. Pinky, fourth, third, second, and I guess the thumb.
All right. Assume for purposes of my question that in this photograph, that's the right arm of the mannequin, okay?
Yes. And that,
there are-
excuse me, then that's the thumb.
Okay, the thumb would be on top.
Yeah, I
the
see
pinky
5
down on
fingers. Yeah,
bottom.
I see 5 fingers now. Okay.
And then the person seated has his hands around the wrists of the mannequin, correct?
On the right wrist, yes.
All right. The spatter that was described by Jamie Lintemoot, as well as the directional spatter on Ms. Clarkson's hands, is consistent with this posture, correct?
Well, I think it would be, I'm not sure, because the wrist is here. We don't really see the wrist, and we don't see the, there's nothing, obviously there's nothing on the left hand here. Or are you including the left hand also?
Put the left hand of the mannequin wherever you want to. I'm just saying the wrist area here and here, assuming that
like
the
they feel like
model,
my hat.
this person in blue, assuming that model is
Slightly
Lana
velvety.
Clarkson,
No, they look really velvety.
that positioning is consistent with the blood spatter that you saw on, or that you're aware of, on Lana Clarkson's
Let me
hands.
think about this. I think, yeah, more or less, yes.
All right, thank you. That's all I have for that picture.
Yes.
You spoke yesterday with Mr. Plord about Lana Clarkson's spine transection. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You opined yesterday, you testified in front of this jury yesterday, that in your opinion, her spine was not completely transected. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You opined, or you testified yesterday, that her spine was broken during transportation, completely transected during transportation.
That the undamaged part was torn during transportation, yes.
When did you come up with that opinion, Dr. Bodden?
I think, as I said, this past Sunday, when going over the matter, the case with Mr. Plord.
You've had access to all the documentation in this case, including the autopsy report. You actually attended the autopsy. You've had full access to all of the police reports, the medical reports in this case, correct?
Pretty much, yeah, I assume so. I assume I got all the police reports, but I don't know.
Over the period of approximately 4.5 years since you were retained on this case, is that right?
Yes.
And you came up with this brand new theory that Lana Clarkson's spine was not completely transected on Sunday last, meaning 2 days ago, correct?
Overruled.
Is that right?
I think so. I think that's fair.
You were aware at the time that you reviewed the autopsy report about the weight of Lana Clarkson's lungs. That was not new information, correct?
Mr. Jackson, as you asked me yesterday, I think, I was aware of the weight of the lungs at the time of the autopsy.
All right.
I didn't get the autopsy report for a year and a half later, but at the time of the autopsy, 1,800-gram very heavy lungs was what you normally see in people who are shot, or not normally. It's not unusual to see it in people who are shot. My focus, of course, was whether it was an intraoral shot or not, and it didn't register as a problem until recent testimony. That's all. It was not an unusual finding.
Until Sunday, actually.
Well, until I listened actually to your cross-examination of, I guess, Dr. Spitz, I think, or Dr. Liestma, that I couldn't understand. I was trying to think, why should there be aspirated blood in the lungs that require breathing in and out and a complete transection of the spinal cord? It didn't, there was a contradiction there. And that's what I discussed with Mr. Plord on Sunday.
Dr. Bodden, you watched my cross-examination of Dr. Spitz, correct? Or you were aware of it?
I was aware of it, yes.
And you were aware of my cross-examination of Dr. Liesma as well, correct?
Yes, not all of it, but parts of it.
And you were aware that the defense was trying to proffer a theory through their testimony that Lana Clarkson may have been expirating blood or coughing or something after death, correct? You were aware of that?
No, overruled. Given the court's prior rulings on this matter, the objection is overruled.
You were aware of that, correct?
I was aware that that was an issue, yes.
And you were aware that after cross-examination by me of Dr. Spitz and Dr. Liesma, that theory would not hold water because her spine was completely transected, correct?
Well, not quite. The finding of blood in the alveoli, of aspirated blood in the alveoli, was there. So from a forensic pathology point of view, she had to have inhaled the blood. That's a fact. That's a given. She had to have inhaled it with multiple inhalations. So that stands by itself. Why it happened is another issue, but it happened. Then when you brought up the point about you can't have many inspirations once the cord is completely shut, and I then reviewed over the autopsy report. It's funny that sometimes you learn more every time I look at the report. You learn more. I saw that the lungs had a quart and a half, more than a quart of water that had poured into the lungs after she was shot. In addition, the brain was a little bit swollen. The brain swelled. That was something I learned last night when I looked at the report. The swelling of the brain, that it was my opinion that somehow breathing had to have occurred and fluid getting into the lung had to have occurred.
It's crazy how long he's been up here. But we've seen long testimonies like this before. Dr.
I
Pena.
remembered from my
I made him his own
that
emoji.
when I went to scenes
He was
where
up here for so
people
long.
were injured, we had to immobilize them. This is even 30 years ago, the neck had to be immobilized because the spinal cord is so fragile that if there's any injury to the spinal cord, transportation can make it, tear more of it, and we don't normally immobilize the spinal cord, and all of our movements with the body after death tend to wiggle around, especially with the sharp edges of the fractured
At
bones.
this point, it's narrative and it's not responsive.
Just a second, the objection is overruled. I believe it is responsive in explaining how he came to his conclusion, which is the import of your question. So the objection is overruled. You may finish.
Thank you, Your Honor. So that with the head being moved back and forth as the body is turned, put on the stretch as when the purge fluids come out when the body is turned, we would never do that with a living person because we would damage the spinal cord. So it occurred to me that we tend to think statically that the body is the way the body was at the time we do the autopsy, but bodies don't, they undergo changes when they go from
Objection,
the
Judge.
scene to the morgue.
This is clearly not responsive. At this point, it's narrative. It's been going on for...
I agree it is a very long answer. I agree it is a narrative, but I don't know any other way that he can be allowed to offer the opinion, and then you may ask further questions. So I'm going to allow him to offer his explanation. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So that thinking more clinically, it was my opinion, and I expressed to Mr. Plord, that something must have happened to the spinal cord on the way into the morgue. It was severed in the morgue, and my opinion is it was not totally severed at the death scene, and that the movement of the body against what Dr. Pena describes as sharp fractured bones of the cervical vertebra 1 and 2 would have easily damaged and further torn what remained of the spinal cord.
And you just came up with this. This is a short answer question, Doctor.
Yes,
you
sir.
just came up with this epiphany on Sunday, correct?
Yes, that's right.
With regard to...
May I suggest?
Judge, if
It'll
you
clarify.
please, can I ask another question?
Hold on a second. The question was, did you come up with this on Sunday?
Yes, sir.
All right, next question.
Thank you. In fact, you said just now in that very lengthy answer, you just said, I thought back, and it dawned on me that I thought back to my youth 30 years ago when we used to immobilize necks, and that helped me with my epiphany. Is that your testimony, correct?
He is not called an epiphany that misquotes the witness. He's called it an opinion, and there's a big difference.
All right, we will refrain from using that term, and then you may either restate the question
Epiphany
or the answer.
would become an opinion.
Was it an epiphany?
No, Mr. Jackson.
All right.
But I also remember...
Objection. Everything after no is non-responsive.
You've answered the question as to whether you would call it an epiphany. Now you may ask your next question.
Thank you. You said that when you came up with this idea that it dawned on you that you got to immobilize the neck. Well, doctor, isn't it true anybody who's watched a professional football game more than twice in their life knows that when the wide receiver is hit and he's down on the ground, the first thing the trainers do is put a big collar around the neck and take him off on a stretcher, correct?
You're absolutely right.
Yet after 47 years of medicine and 2 hours worth of qualifications that we heard about, you just came up with this idea on Sunday, correct?
Objection, it's already been.
The way you asked the question about qualifications, sustained, just rephrase it.
Sure. The fact of the matter is, Dr. Bodden, you spoke with the defense team. By the way, let me ask this foundationally. You got to Los Angeles on Thursday last, correct?
But what is it, this past Thursday? Yeah.
Correct. On the most recent Thursday past.
Yes.
All right. And during that time, you were with your wife, correct?
Yes.
All right. You were with your wife most of that time.
Yes.
And intermittently, I'm sure you met with the defense team or telephonically,
Dude,
either
it's been-
telephonically or in person, correct?
I didn't really meet until Sunday with,
Okay.
with Mr. Plourde.
The fact of the matter is, when you and Mr. Plourde started to sit down and talk about your testimony, he indicated that the defense was unhappy with how Dr. Spitz and Dr. Lietzma had held up under cross-examination, and they had to figure out, or you had to figure out, how to put Lana Clarkson's spine back together to fit the new theory of their case. Isn't that true?
Your Honor,
Just a second, before you answer, please, yes.
hearsay, it's argumentative.
Well, I think we all saw the witness said to you, let me answer. So
Withdrawn.
you may proceed.
No, I just want to say that, Mr. Jackson, that's completely not true. That's what it
All right. Notwithstanding the fact that you were at the autopsy, and these are a couple of simple ones, Doctor. Notwithstanding the fact that you were at the autopsy, not a word about Lana Clarkson's spinal cord transection in this report that you memorialized, correct?
That may be true.
All right. And you have no notes. You have already indicated you memorialized no notes to suggest that you came up with this conclusion or this was an issue before Sunday, correct?
The former question is correct.
Overruled. You may answer.
That's true, Mr. Jackson.
But you were with your wife over the weekend, starting on Thursday and through the weekend, correct?
Yes.
And you and Miss Linda Kinney Bodden talked about the case, correct?
Not much. She was under medication, and she was not feeling well. We did not talk about the case very much. We might have said a few words, but she was under various medications that caused her to be sleepy and drowsy, and her health was more important, if I may, than this case.
And in fact, after you had some substantial time with your wife over the weekend, then you met with Mr. Plourde on Sunday,
Having
correct?
a great weekend.
I met with Mr. Plourde on Sunday, yes.
And according to you, this opinion, not an epiphany, but this opinion came to you for the very first time on Sunday.
Yeah, Mr. Jackson, yes. If I had thought of it earlier, I would have discussed it with Dr. DeMeo, with Dr. Spitz, and most of all with Dr. Liestma.
Well,
he would be the first one I would talk to about it if I knew about it beforehand.
I didn't ask you what...
I don't know what, he may finish his answer unless there's an objection. I don't know.
There is an objection. It calls for speculation. I'm not curious about what you would have done or could have done. I'm curious about what you did.
No, he's explaining why he didn't, so it's not calling for speculation. The objection is overruled. You may proceed.
Yes. The person I would have spoken to about this first would have been Dr. Liestma or Dr. Spitz or Dr. DeMeo to see what they thought about it and what their opinions were. And at no time did I ever speak to them before Sunday about this, and I didn't speak to my wife about it, and I didn't think it was such a big deal. I thought that this made sense out of some information that was contradictory, that is, the complete severance of the spine. And the issue I have, and you have, Mr. Jackson,
Objection. This is non-responsive at this point.
Becoming non-responsive.
Okay.
All right, you may proceed.
The fact of the matter is, notwithstanding what you would have or could have done, you didn't
He wants
talk
to leave
Dr.
so bad.
Liestma
I mean, I don't
about
blame him at
correct?
this point. This
That's
has
correct.
been...
And you didn't talk to Dr. Spitz
think
about
actual
this,
days.
correct? And you didn't talk to Dr. DeMaio
Not
about
with
this.
Jackson specifically.
And you
because
never
Ford
called
been with
Dr.
him for
Pena
a long
about
time,
this.
but-
No, I didn't.
Correct?
I didn't talk to Dr. Pena about it, no.
All right. And you're aware that all of those doctors, all of those medical professionals have testified in this case, and none of them have opined, that her spine was not completely and utterly transected by the gunshot wound. Yes or no? You're aware of that?
Yes.
Argumentative, objection calls for speculation, and also, if the court overrules the objection, she should not be...
Which I am. All right. What's the next point?
Well, there's always the fallback position.
All right. What's that?
And that is he should not be limited to answer this question, yes or no.
Well, I don't... We can have
Jackson
the
is
whole
like
question.
a
You done with the
sniper,
question?
dude.
The question was, did he...
He's a verbal
no one
sniper.
else has testified to that.
Is he aware that no one else has testified?
That calls for a yes or no.
Are you aware of that? Yes or no?
Yes, I am aware of that.
Thank you. And in this case, you have charged to date.
And sometimes
somewhere in the
it can
you
hurt
will
a
have
little
charged
bit.
by the time you're done, somewhere in the order of
He gets into a rhythm and just
$110,000
starts.
for what I
it's just
think
like-
you testified.
It's just like he's got someone up against the ropes. He's just like just getting in there. Bop, 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 boom, 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 boom. He's like, he's on the ropes. Let me get a couple more in just for good measure.
To yesterday was about 40 days worth of work, correct? 30 to 40 days worth of work, correct?
Dude, it happens every episode just about.
Not
There's
quite. There were about 30 days that I was here.
Outburst of
I'm not
laughter.
charging
It's
for
crazy.
a lot of work that I did in my office back in New York City.
Same, Lacey.
But it
My
would be
favorite judge. He's
about 40 days, but I
As
don't
fair as
charge
I
for
think
every
you
day
can
in a
get.
situation like this.
And Doctor, if you weren't spending those
because I think I like Hippler and Koberger also. I really truly think he's fair as well. I could see why people that are more pro Koberger don't think that. I can see that, but I really enjoy his style. But Fiddler here, Judge Dowhard, because sometimes you'll watch some of these trials and you'll get that vibe that help Karen Reed, for example, how they are so much on the prosecution side. It sucks. It's hard to get past, but in my opinion, Judge Dowhard treats this as fairly as he can. He'll give it to Alan Jackson and the state just as much as he'll give it to the defense and Spector's side. Like it's
those 30
interesting.
or 40
I love
days
him.
coming up with this theory, what have you been doing the whole time?
I think that's way too broad and too vague. I'm going to sustain it, Judge.
The most that you can point to as far as documentation, let's limit it to that, is this report, correct?
That was
Overruled. You may answer.
Is that
that
right?
was the only document I was asked to put into writing. Yes.
For $110,000.
No, that's not true.
I'll withdraw it, Judge.
All right.
You also looked at, under questioning by Mr. Plord, you looked at a couple of emails, and you said that it's important, I think, and this is consistent with a bunch of other stuff that we've heard, it's important to look at histories when you're looking at a crime scene. Who are the parties involved, and what are the histories that led us to this point, correct?
Yes, that's
And-
helpful. That may be helpful.
In doing so, you looked at a couple of Lon Clarkson's emails, correct?
I looked at a lot of Lon Clarkson's emails, yes.
Yesterday, you were asked to look at two specifically.
Two specifically, yes.
All right, and the two emails were put on the overhead, is that right?
Yes.
With regard to the questioning, you weren't asked to read the entire emails, but you said that the tone and the tenor of the emails showed a sadness, correct? An unhappiness.
Yes.
Tell me if this is the email that, and I think this has been previously marked as I want to say C10, C to the 10th.
Let me take a look.
It's the one that starts
All
out.
I'll know is whether or not it was an email or not, because I'll describe it in that manner just a second.
One of them is C10 and the other is C11.
Okay?
Do not forget, guys, we've got 3 minutes left in this video, and then we're going to have a will spin. Everyone this morning has been so kind. We've had a great morning. Lacey, thank you so much. So many new members. Lady D, holy crap. I've been blown away by the kindness in the chat. We're going to be giving away some cool stuff. I know I've got some stickers. I think I've got a tattoo left. I've got a publicly buzzed tattoo. I think I've got some stickers, and I've definitely got a magnet. And these magnets are fucking fire.
Oh, here we go. I have C10 as a photo.
Maybe, you know what, maybe they were collectively marked as C11.
C10 is a photo.
Okay.
Yeah, but Mr. Jackson is right, C11 is an email, or maybe the
One of them has got 2 pages, the other one is the same.
All right.
We can figure this out
In any
outside the
event,
presence
yes,
of the jury.
moving forward.
Thank you. One of the emails sounded thusly. Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for your kind words. You are the beautiful one, and I can see you as your shining, healthy, positive self. Well, we all have so much to be thankful for. I try every day to think that way because, believe me, I have my moments. This injury, the timing of it, it's been really difficult. But I just keep plugging away. My girlfriend referred me to this doctor. My girlfriend who referred me to this doctor was severely addicted to cigs and coffee, meaning cigarettes and coffee, I'm assuming.
Right.
I have more serious addictions, like pain pills. I cannot share with you enough how different this person is now. In an amazing love relationship, successful as hell, and no smoking, no 20 cups of coffee a day. She also learned to stand up for herself and her feelings. She's so cool and mellow, a great person now. I want some of what she's got. Tell the doc I referred you. Though she and I have yet to meet, I know I'll have the opportunity soon. She will know who I am. There are others in our circle she's also helped to change their lives! Exclamation point. Good luck, girlie. Here's the information on the doc. Is that one of the emails, doctor, that in your opinion shows an overarching sadness? Thank you, Chris.
Well, I think it shows that she has a problem with the pain pills, and we know she was taking Vicodin for a year or two or something.
For her wrists, correct?
Well, whatever, for her wrist initially, but you don't give addictive drugs for that as long a period as she had. And she still was taking it, even though I couldn't find any recent prescriptions for it. She was able to get it. It's in her autopsy findings. So that no, I mean, the jury is just as good as I in interpreting that. But my interpretation would be that a sadness there, yes, that she is recommending this person, has friends, and all that is fine.
Right.
Yeah, all right, thank you. With that, we will take our noon recess. Keep in mind the admonition. We'll see you at 1:30. Thank you.
Is there a part 7? I'm not even sure. Oh my god, the part 7 of Baden. How long is it? Out of interest, before we move on to the will. So 1 hour and 8 minutes for part 7 of Baden. Baden is still here. Holy cow. Hey, before we do the will, I want to show this because this is absolutely insane, and I just now sent the tweet out that we live inside of a freaking dream, and we do. Photograph taken inside of an Argentinian theater shows where the ceiling collapsed during a screening of the brand new Final Destination film. What the fuck, dude? It's trippy as hell. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to spin a wheel. Everyone's been so freaking cool. Let me see here. See if we can get a good spin here. Just testing it right now, making sure she's loose. Okay. That's what she said. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good luck. Ooh, it's a good spin. Damn, I think that's Kathy. Kathy, congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, Kathy just now picked up a win, and she's going to get some goodies. Kathy and Pumpkin, no doubt. Thank you very much. Holy shit. Let's go. I'm going to hit you with some right here.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
You gotta fight for your right
to party. Let's go.
Respect my house.
That's freaking awesome. Is she still in here? Yeah, and she's the one that was saying good luck, throwing out 4-leaf clovers. Hell yeah, let me get you in the winner circle here. And what a great morning. Thanks everyone so much, seriously. Like, holy cow. Reaching the goal this morning was super cool, super awesome. Everyone was so kind. We got a lot of new members here to check out the Buzz Nation, see if you like it, and I hope that you do. Putting in a lot of work here, but yeah, Kathy's going in the winner circle right now. Let me see, she's going to get a magnet, stickers, and a tat. I'm pretty sure I have a tattoo left. Don't hold me to the tat just yet, but I think I've still got some tats left. So, hell yes. And I need to get some more stuff. I need to get some more stickers. Actually, I've run low on some of those. But hell yes. Thank you all so much. What an incredible morning, first of all. My God. Are you kidding me? Freaking incredible. Now, I forgot to even end that one.
Hold up. Hold up. Hold up.
Man. So yes, thank you all so much. So one thing that we're going to be doing here, let me see. So one thing I need to do, I need to actually get with Dan today to get him to help me, because I've been having a little bit of a weird issue with some guests the last few weeks, and I just had Jessica on Friday for Phil Friday, and the sound was clipping or even going robotic. So I'm going to try to get Dan together to see if I can get that fixed, because this Friday night on Phil Friday, I'm having the glare on here. We're going to be watching a cool movie on kick.com/publiclybuzzed. If you're not subbed up over there following on Kick, make sure that you are. Make sure that you come through here on a Friday night or any night that I head over to Kick. I try to explain it as well as I can to get you over there. And we have a good time. The Buzz Nation represents over there pretty hard. We always have a pretty good crew that hangs out. And I appreciate it. Everyone freaking rules. Thank you all so much. But tonight on the second channel, Wrestle Plunge, I have a second channel. Let me go ahead and get the link in here also. I stream live from it. And I show old school wrestling. I also make a lot of videos as well on that channel. But I show old school wrestling on Sunday nights from 1989 from the Memphis area. It's called CWA. Let me just pull this in here real quick so I can get the live. And again, if you do go over there, make sure you check out the video section, because I have a lot of videos. And one thing that I like to plug... One thing that I like to plug on here for that, because you're probably like, oh, I'm into true crime. Well, what do I give a shit about the wrestling? The video section, I usually tell a pretty wild, true backstage type story. If anyone's ever watched Dark Side of the Ring, it gets kind of dark. You kind of get the real story behind the wrestlers, because there's a lot of real stuff that happens and a lot of dark stuff, whether it's drugs, whether it's deaths, whether it's murders. There's a lot of really wild stuff, and I try to break the rapes, assaults. It's really dark, and I go into those stories and I pull them out and I try to tell them in a documentary style video. So yeah, if anybody could check that out. But again, tonight live, I think I'm going to go live at 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight. I think that may be the new time on Sunday, because 8's a little bit crowded for wrestling during that time. That's usually when pay-per-views start. That's usually when some other streamers are going as well. So I'm going to try to get in during that time frame. So yeah, please come hang out. And thanks, everyone. A lot of new folks came through here this morning. Again, welcome all new members. Go to the video section. Go to the live section. There's a lot of cool content just for you. Check it out. Looking in through here real quick. EB, thank you for coming through here. Hope you everyone have a great rest of your holiday weekend, especially if you're off tomorrow on Monday. Thank you very much, Oasis Cat. Yeah, even if you're not into wrestling, I feel like you'd get sucked in from the story of some of these, because some of them are really messed up. Like I said, it's pretty dark. Like, it's right up the true crime alley of a lot of folks, I believe. Let's look at the poll before I get out of here. Do you think Phil Spector pulled the trigger? Yes, 83%, no, 3%, and not sure, 14%. And that's out of 36 votes here this morning. That's a pretty good little poll, actually, for Publicly Buzzed Nation. So everyone kind of knows where I sit on this one. I think that Phil Spector, whether it was an accident, I think he probably was in his mind threatening her to get her to stay, to again, he didn't want her to leave. We've seen it time and time again depicted by other witnesses and women that have been in his life. Whether it was an accident or not, however that trigger went off, I do hold Phil Spector responsible. I haven't been convinced otherwise. But I love to hear the opinions of everyone. I love to listen to folks. So the people that do think otherwise, you're welcome here to discuss that. Joe coming through here. What's up, Joe? How you doing, man? Morning. Hope you're having a good holiday weekend also. Oh, I get that. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you all so much. Again, have a great rest of your Sunday. Keep an eye out for everything. And yeah, love you. Boom. Let's go. Whoa.